What is going on, YouTube world? He's Steve. I'm Dave. If you're watching us on the newly created Insert Revolution Podcast YouTube channel. So our podcast can go on here and be a standalone, opposed to being on my channel alone, which I've said from the beginning. I don't want to feel like it's drawing attention to myself, because I do a pretty good job of that anyway in some of my videos. But what is going on, Steve?
Just another day in paradise. Just another day in paradise. So, yeah, it's... I will say, as I was moving videos, and I thought I had spread them out enough as I was uploading, because I was uploading 5 at a time, that everything would have fallen in order. So I will fair warn everybody, not that it matters, because moving forward, the views will come here, which is fine.
What's going on, Paul?
What's going on, Paul? Ty? I will end up fixing it. So what I'll end up having to do is pull them all down and start fresh. But it took me 2 days to do that with the amount of time because I had to download them from YouTube via a different software tool. But now that I think that they're on, I can download them from the new channel. So that'll kind of help. And then I'll redo the playlist, because I did want to make sure all the 2020 podcasts were on their own playlist. So if somebody wanted to sit there and have a bunch of crap going on in the background, 30 plus hours, 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever it is, they could run it through the playlist and let it autoplay if they really chose to do so. So Dave has been slacking as of late. The thumbnails still aren't up there. Yes, Dave, I am going to poke fun at you because we can do that. Because
I've got probably 6 or 7 of the pictures in the gallery. I've had to go back and try to look, because as soon as they're done, they go away. I mean, I'm like, okay, delete them off the phone. But yeah, I've got to think the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving one up, the pet peeves. God, what else? I think the goals one was still on there. And I don't remember what other ones, but that, yeah, I showed Steve the other day, what's up, Vinny, that what I was in taking under, or whatever it would be, and after the sorting was going, and it was his reaction, I'm sure. Not very good. It's a long ways to go, or whatever.
I don't even remember what I said, Dave, to be honest.
I can just imagine, the possible sarcasm behind it.
Yeah, Ty, all the previous episodes that were on Dave's channel were freshly uploaded here to the standalone channel. We didn't want to create the channel and have no content, so to speak, because as we indicated, last week, we were hoping to be able to do the first episode of 2021 on the new channel, but due to policies between YouTube and StreamYard, they have to approve you actually being able to go live and things along those lines. We were unable to do so. So we at least wanted to have some content on here. On the flip side, we have the devout following. You guys and girls are here consistently. Vinny, I don't know if your wife is watching this evening, but I know she does catch us from time to time. We're not expecting the channel to get to the level of subscribers, so to speak, as either my channel or Dave's. That's not the expectation. Dave and his conscience, I guess, got the better of him because he didn't want to consistently have all the episodes showing on his channel, and not getting, I guess, the support from my subscriber base, but most people are subscribed to me or subscribed to Dave or vice versa. So to me, it didn't matter. But in the new year, we thought it was time for a change. So that's the whole reason why we decided to do it. Now, it would be cool if it does take off, but that's not the expectation. That's not why we do it. It will never be monetized, and I am going to, and you can quote me on it. This channel will never be monetized. No, I'm not even. There are no air quotes.
No, I don't want. We do this for fun. We don't do this for fiduciary gains. That's one of our biggest, I know, pet peeves. And at some point we'll have part 3 of that. I still have a notebook full of pet peeves to rant on about. But yeah, it's when people say they want to pay for advice, have you pay about how to collect cards. I can't get behind that. There's always an avenue. Now, again, we're not going to be one of the top podcasts on YouTube to show up about cards. You're going to see the other people out there that have tens of thousands of subscribers, fancy editing, build up a name with guests. That's fine. Again, I don't know. We're almost like sifting through like a dollar box where that is our sponsor tonight. Yes, Bud Light.
I only do that because of Carlos's comment. And there is the better half. So she is watching. The sponsor doesn't pay shit, Carlos.
I wish it would. But it's like when you sift through a dollar box or a $5 box or $10 box at a show or a shop, and you find these hidden gems in there. You find like that insane value. I a lot of the time I won't liken us to that, but there's a lot of stuff.
She pays attention. See, we have added people to the list that follow us. Vinny is quite proud of that. I think we should be proud of it.
Yeah, usually there's only one woman that would ever want to listen to me or deal with my ramblings. Now we got one that'll listen to both of us. Another one. So
I know that's crazy.
But I mean, we don't want to monetize it because of that fact. Information should be free unless you're in the hobby for the wrong reason. Plain and simple. You can explain it away any way you want. I know a lot of people, they go away from collecting, doing whatever, then come back, and they're overwhelmed because you look at a market that's just completely bonkers, and they don't know where to turn. So it's like, well, let's turn to YouTube, or let's turn to like a Twitter or Instagram or whatever the case may be. And those are the people that show up first, which, again, that's...
Oh, Dave, hold up. Time out. I got to stop you. Highlight that comment. You're welcome, Vinny. You're welcome. The check's in the mail, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Internet money.
Oh, I forgot. We're not monetized.
That doesn't mean if you don't walk past us and you might drop like a 50 or 100, we won't pick it up.
That would be regardless if we had the podcast or not. Come on, let's be realistic here.
Don't give all our secrets away.
But the advice is free, remember? So then, if that's the case, then everything should be free.
Well, we didn't say everything. I mean, conversation and humor, I mean, those are... You've got to tack it on somewhere. You have to have that asterisk. If you look at the bottom of the paper and it's in like Braille print, that's like 1/64 size. Yeah, then guess what? You didn't read the fine print. That's on you.
Oh, so are you telling me I should have read the contract that you made me sign to do this? I didn't read the fine print.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
See, Carlos is aware. He knows.
Well, of course. That's why you don't sign anything coming from Carlos.
Ever. It's going to be the where you have to have like the magic marker, the clear one, color the paper, and it comes out like you owe me everything for the rest of your days. Oh, shit.
Right. So, Ty, look, there's a ton of the content out there. This is just me personally. I will not fault anybody who goes and watches any of it at all. It doesn't change my opinions of people because there is information out there to be had, so to speak, if you want to listen to it. However, it's all about what you're watching it for. And if it steams your blood, boils your blood, makes you want to, just go crazy, then don't ever watch it anymore. So for me, I don't watch any of it because I don't buy into any of it. I could care less. And that's why, to a certain degree, I don't want to say uneducated with a lot of that stuff that's going on. It agitates me so much that I refuse to watch it. That's just me. There are channels out there that do talk about some of the investment side, but it's not painful to watch. And I do watch some of those videos from time to time, but I don't give a shit about the top 5 right now because by the time it really comes out, you're a little bit late. So it's not real-time data by the time something gets, put out there. And as Carlos always says, card ladder and all that stuff, they're tools. If you want to use them for what they are, great. There's no fault in that. But as Vinny and I were talking via text earlier today, I'm a big believer in understanding the why. And there is not anything out there that ever goes into the why. And me personally, I have a hard time even trying to contemplate some of the reasons as to why. Because there could be some of those situations in which it's not because they had a 4-touchdown game or, they had a triple-double or, the youngest player ever to score a triple-double. Those are tangible. But everything that dictates the market is not tangible. It's not. So it's hard to really dig into the why. Because as people have stated, you can analyze data all day long. You can plot points on a graph all day long. That's great. It's tangible data, but is it legit data? And that's the part that you don't fully know the back end. So that's kind of like the non-transparency component of it all is you, me, everybody here could sit there and say, okay, guys, I'm going to put up these cards. And I want everybody to bid the shit out of them. There you've just now created market manipulation. And since cards are not regulated, there's nothing wrong with that in the eyes of the investor or the flipping world. There's not. Any of us could create false data. And I think that's where a lot of it is coming from, unfortunately. And that's the downside to what we're experiencing as hobbyists and collectors.
Yeah.
I second that comment to Vinny's wife.
Yeah. Again, when it's there was a term I hadn't heard before. I think Jeremy had used it on one of his sports cards live. Was commodity cards. When those cards, when they don't have, it's not like the Alex Gordon 2006 tops cutout or the LeVar Arrington 2000. I think it was UD MVP cutout. Either that or Ultra. One of the two had something where he didn't sign the players agreement or whatever to be on cards, and that becomes like a quickly scarce card because of reasons that are tangible. When you have a Acuna non-bat down or a Soto Topps Chrome update or whatever the case may be, that it's a basically, in all intents and purposes, by definition, a base set card, and it is of ultra modern or even these parallels. Again, I get the Antetokounmpo silver from 12-13 Prism or 13-14, whatever the rookie year is, because they didn't have a ton then. It wasn't like, okay, now you've got a brand after 4 or 5 years, you can see it's catching fire. And then a Mahomes one is going for stupid money and like a PSA 10. A Lamar Jackson last year was going for stupid money. I'm sure Josh Allen stuff now is going for absolutely stupid money.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
But they're not. It's somebody else had a phrase for it too. It's something with scarcity. It's you have actual scarcity with there's a manufactured scarcity, and then I know I've heard the term there too, but I mean I like where it's, and again we won't see them again, but like the stated print run odds on a foil pack or on the box. I like seeing that because okay, run for the cup, it's 100 cards per uh, or 100 print run cards per card, and you know it's a tough card to get. Prism Silver, Deshaun Watson, or whoever, Mahomes, they're hard to find to a degree. It's not like you look for one and you can't find one pretty much on any forum. It and I've got not a chicken sandwich, but barbecue roast beef or barbecue beef there. Um, when you have these investor type people that are being elevated in the hobby spotlight, constantly talking about stuff that it's pretty well available. I mean, you can go out and get a Soto Topps Heritage or Topps update, get it raw. If you really want the card where you're not paying whatever the PSA 10 prices are, you still can get those cards in good condition and not pay out the ass. But at the same time, if you've got a name, if you've got a following, you got some flashy graphics, some cool charts and graphs. I mean, people tend to follow that because it's visually appealing, just like we love the inserts. They're aesthetically appealing. These people are watching the video and like, wow, it's like 1080 resolution. You've got some fancy editing in there. You have maybe a big name or two. They tend to gravitate towards that, and the information sort of gets lost. It's like a rising tide. It washes away that information that's actually pertinent or something you want to hear because it may not be always the person coming into the hobby that wants to flip or get the hottest card. They want to go back to their childhood and get the cards that they couldn't afford then. So they want to find some of those folks that might provide information. I don't know. It's just at some point in time, you hope people, you don't want to say come to their senses, but come to the realization that just because you have a name out there, just because you've got 80,000 subscribers, 50,000 subscribers, just because you shout them out in a video or whatever for care packages. That your information isn't always going to be the Grail, the Bible. That's not the stuff you have to read verbatim. You can deviate from those people. You can go down, again, we've said it before many a time, the rabbit hole, and you don't have to stick with the Gary V's of the world or the card ladder type situations and stuff of that ilk. But it takes some doing. You can't just you'll rest on your laurels and hope that the right information comes along.
Look, we can all sit there and talk about who's hot, who's not. Anybody who's hot in the hobby, guess what? Most of their cards are on the uptick from a sale perspective. It's not rocket science, folks. Most people who talk about some of these, I don't want to call them lower end, but lower tiered guys, middle of the road, great players type situation, but haven't quite hit their peak. Sitting there and saying, hey, invest in these guys. Guess what? If you're right 50% of the time, people are going to follow that. Mm-hmm. But to me, that's not substance. If you're right 100% of the time, then maybe you have some sort of substance. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, it's very easy to manipulate that market, though, too. Hey, this guy is going to break out. His cards are going to, blow up. Well, yeah, just because you say it could be part of it, but at the same time, you could also be responsible for making that spike, though, too. Mm-hmm. If you have a large position in something because you bought low, pennies on the dollar, and you want to make money, you can falsely manipulate that data. Easy. It's not hard. Like I said, all of us here could do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that that's transpiring all the time. That's not what I'm getting at. I don't want to take away from the fact that, some of the stuff is legitimate. Getting the respect that they deserve, as Carlos alluded to in one of his podcasts, which I do find it interesting that people have leveraged that. And hell, I might have even said it a few times and not thinking it through. Mm-hmm. Because it's one of those in which you're trying to verbalize something that can't always be verbalized without using terms or terminology to get the point across without thinking it through. There's a lot of great players out there that don't have the hobby love for whatever reason. And I get it, Carlos. And like I said, I may have used it myself, not thinking through it. But, the interesting part, looking at other people's perspectives and bringing it up, it's like, what? That's valid points. And that's where the appreciation for, the podcast comes into play and, listening to other people's opinions. You don't have to agree with everything. That's not the purpose. If that's the case, then we'd all be freaking running around following people who would lead us to our deaths as we walk, off the pier into, the never-ending abyss.
It'd be like
so. It's one of those in which there are a ton of players out there that don't get the hobby love. Great players, Hall of Fame players, that for whatever reason, there's not a spike in stuff. It's not a bad thing, but for me, in what my way of thinking is take advantage of those situations. If you really want to look at opportunities to, make money, so to speak, find some of those other players. If they're Hall of Fame players, guess what? In time, mark my words, they're Hall of Fame. Mark my words, their stuff will go up. It may be the long-term investment, but guess what? Their stuff will go up. It's the nature of the beast. Anybody who makes the Hall of Fame eventually their stuff does slightly go on the uptick. There may be some exceptions. There may be some anomalies. That happens. Hall of Fame player goes and O.J. Simpson stuff, for instance. That would be the anomaly. But this is, as you always say, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I hadn't read this yet. If you have an unlimited budget, you can buy anything. That absolutely. Absolutely. That almost sounds like Vinny talking. Vinny, are you feeding your wife information? Because you got quiet all of a sudden. And now I'm wondering if you're on your wife's account or you got caught on a phone call for work, even though you told them Tuesdays and Thursdays are off limits. You told them that started immediately. I know you did.
They listened.
So there's so many different things to look at. And, we talked about it last week. And, I showed the 2 cards. And I did find out it I don't want to call it damaged. I'll call it a defect. That is on the surface of the card. Wow. I just got the middle finger. Ouch. All right. I probably deserve that. I just thought I would ask, but then again, I forget. So, hey, for context, everybody, Benny's wife actually used to be a collector. So, mad props. Mad props. I was giving you crap because you were here. I was not insulting your intelligence, I promise. That's just what I do. Oh, there's the rough around the edges part. Ty. But anyways, where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought now.
The 2 cards last week. One had the chipping.
People started asking, well, do you have anything that you can sell? And it's like, yeah, I do, but I don't want to. And that's the hard part because my collector mentality usually takes over the money aspect. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I like the fact that I'm in basically a self-sustaining hobby if I want it to be. Mm-hmm. I've sold stuff in the past. Not going to deny that. I've sold a lot of stuff in the past. I was a silver power seller on eBay for 2 years. But, when my collector gene kind of takes over ownership, it's hard for me to part with stuff because, and I think the friends that have been made because of the podcast and the podcast itself has really brought the collector gene to the forefront even more than what it has before, which is why I've taken the opportunity to start sorting through stuff and build partial sets and look at ways to complete those sets and things along those lines. And I've got a crap ton of stuff. Nothing to the extent of what Dave has. A lot of my jerseys, patch, autos, that type of stuff, a lot of that stuff is gone. Whether it be through care packages, I've sold it before. I do have a small little stack of stuff, but it's nothing substantial. So a lot of the stuff that I would have to sell would be, sets, partial sets, inserts, parallels, that type of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff. Since I'm a big football guy, the football market still has not caught on from the insert and the parallel perspective. There's a few handful because of name recognition, and it qualifies for the iconic title that have substantially increased in value. But the bulk of the stuff is still fairly cheap. So
oh, hey, fellas.
Oh, what's going on, Matt?
Not a whole lot, man.
How you been?
Good. Just back at work, teaching on a computer again, and excited to watch some hockey soon. I'm stoked, guys. I'm stoked.
Well,
Go
good
Picks.
deal. Good deal.
They play early too. They play at like 1:00 my time tomorrow. So while I'm grading papers, I'll have to have like another screen with the game on or something.
That's called multitasking, Matt.
Yeah, I know.
Just make sure that as you're grading a paper, you're not like goal or
or like damn it when Jari lets one by. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big F on the paper.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
Yeah, all it's going to take is a kid to say that they're a Caps fan or something on a paper, like, I love the Capitals in one of their spelling sentences, and I'm just like, you need to redo this whole thing. Or the Flyers, like, you're done.
Oh, man. Man, oh, man, oh, man. So
you guys are talking about goals and stuff for this year, huh?
We will eventually, but...
Oh, okay. I just got here, so I wasn't sure what you guys were chatting about.
No worries. We ramble on the first hour and a half, give or take, and then we sometimes get on subject. You know how this works, Matt. You're not new to this.
Right.
I don't know if you've had a chance, but the top 20 video was uploaded on YouTube.
Oh, snap. You know what it was? I subscribed to you on Essential Credentials. I haven't remembered to do it on Poke Checking.
Poke Checking.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is uploaded. It was kind of interesting. Vinny and I were talking. Vinny, was it yesterday? Keep me honest, because we chat via text all day long sometimes. And I think it was yesterday. He had mentioned that you and him were chatting back and forth via DM on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
I told him, I was like, it's like, oh, yep, that reminds me. I need to let Matt know the video's uploaded because I did it because you mentioned your dad.
Yeah,
and,
for sure. And I want him to see it.
So it's like I had the opportunity to record it, and I'm like, okay, I got to get this done. So the first part is the last few pickups from last year. But then the rest, I did my top 20 for 2020. So you haven't seen all the cards because I did show a lot of them on the podcast.
Right.
I did add some other ones. So
how come, man? Like I'm putting the search in the search bar there, and it's not showing up. I mean,
the Broncos 79.
Oh, okay. Because see, I was going off of your other name. All right, it's going off of something. Oh, there we go. Boom, done.
Yep.
Okay, I will definitely be checking that out and letting my dad see. We actually talk on Tuesday nights, my dad and my sister and I. We've been doing that ever since COVID hit, and it's been a nice little thing to look forward to on Tuesdays. So I will definitely send him that link so he can watch it afterwards. That'll be great.
Good deal. So no, I thought about you because that really resonated in you stating that your dad was a big Terrell Davis Bronco fan and everything else. I was like, yeah, I got to get this done. I got to find the time. So I closed. Believe it or not, that's the first video I've recorded with all of this stuff going on and my wife working from home and everything else to where they were actually at home. I closed myself off in the bedroom. I'm like, I got to get this done.
Right.
Because if not, Matt's gonna give me a swift kick in the butt. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoy that. I enjoy being able to see some of those collections that I've kind of just come to hear about and why you like them. I mean, with Dave, I don't know what I'm going to see next. I mean, if he starts collecting Sebastian Aho next week, I'm probably going to have to kick his ass. But, I see he's got mail. But no, seriously, it's nice to see a wide variety, and I don't watch much football. I mean, that's just because A, I don't want to be sucked in, and B, just not something that I is on the radar. But yeah, man, growing up, Broncos and John Elway was my favorite player. Growing up, and watching him do that dive in the Super Bowl, which we've talked about, and then every time I'd play, Madden, the old school Maddens, or what was the other one called?
Well, you had Joe Montana, and then you also had Tecmo Bowl.
No, it wasn't that. It was there was Madden, and there was another NFL game that was made at the same time. Game Day, I believe it was called. So,
yep.
So okay. I played that a lot and played as the Broncos and TD and just handed him the ball constantly and whatnot and threw to McCaffrey. So yeah, a lot of good memories from back in those days for sure.
So while I think about this, since we were talking Broncos briefly, so Paul actually, I'm pretty sure it was Paul. Please, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure it was you. You did. You had posted on the top 20 video that you were interested in to hear as to why Terrell Davis was my guy. So I'm not going to give like the big diatribe by any stretch of the imagination. So I've always been a Broncos fan as long as I can remember. Thanks to my grandmother, she loved Elway,
Nice.
and anytime the Broncos were on TV, believe it or not, the Broncos actually trumped the Cowboys. So if for any reason there was 2 games on TV, the Broncos were on because she loved Elway. And that's where the love for Denver came into play. And so as a young kid, I loved the team. I loved the logo. I loved Elway. I loved the late 80s, early 90s team. But Denver never had a running game, really.
Mm-hmm.
And when Denver won the Super Bowl, it was because of Terrell Davis. That's the whole reason as to why Denver won the Super Bowl. Back to back, it was because of Terrell Davis. You always had to think about the run because he could explode for a 60-yard run, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap. So that started my appreciation for Terrell Davis, was just him as a runner. I started watching, stuff pertaining to his college years because he was a late draft pick. I never watched a lot of college ball, but from there, I started doing bigger searches. And I came across a video during the preseason, and they were in Tokyo or something, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, like I said, preseason game. He was on the kickoff team, and he just laid the freaking guy out. Laid him out. And it's like, this guy's a player. This guy is a baller. And, so it's one of those in which you would have thought I would have stumbled across that first. Then, got the appreciation. It was kind of more the appreciation of what he started doing in Denver, giving them the opportunity to win championships. And then I went back to his early years. So, and his story is amazing, though, too. I mean, he's a migraine sufferer, a very bad migraine sufferer. And is it the 30 for 30 series that ESPN did on, like, certain players?
Mm-hmm.
They did one on him. And, there was a deeper appreciation for what he did for that team, even dealing with migraines. I mean, going off, sitting on the field, having a major migraine and trying to find ways to soothe it, but then to get back into the game and give them an opportunity to win. That's cojones, and that's pride. And, I wish he wouldn't have torn his ACL. It would have been one of those, if he could have played a few more years and then torn his ACL, maybe he could have come back from it. But it was still so early in the infancy when he tore it.
Yeah.
I was afraid that he was a goner. And, short career, but, man, was that guy fun to watch.
Running backs don't typically have those long careers, right, Dave? Like Barry Sanders. I mean, he could have kept going, but he did a smart thing. He's like, I'd like to be able to walk the rest of my life, so I'm going to get out. But, yeah, it's amazing. I look at those sorry, Daniel, I just saw your comment. You get like 5 to 7 good years out of a running back, you should be happy. Like the Seahawks can't even keep one running back healthy for a year. So what Terrell Davis was able to do, getting hit twice as hard as guys were hitting them with helmets first and not shoulders first, and that dude was a ball player. You're right. A lot of respect for him. I do find it kind of cool, though, like why people choose to, enjoy players. For instance, obviously we got the guys that go back to our childhood, but I was thinking the same thing, Paul. Like, I was going to ask Dave, can I ask Dave why Dumba? I tried to draft him in my draft yesterday. Didn't have a chance. I missed out. But, like, a player like that, why is it Matt Dumba? Did I get it right?
Mhm.
How come?
And then local kid, isn't that part of the reason?
Oh,
Well,
okay.
it's a while. That's one because I'm like they had accrued a number of picks that were in that top 10 or top 15,
Okay.
and he's a monster hitter. I mean, he would lay the lumber like a Steve Atwater,
Okay.
and he can actually score goals. I mean, he has a wicked slap shot that's just fierce. And then the last year, you see more of the intelligence side come out because he's with like the minority, trying to bring more minorities into hockey and more
Okay.
awareness through hockey. And so he's like one of the like the player, not the player rep, but I want to say in charge of the player president or something.
Oh, okay.
That he's really gotten involved since the George Floyd deal went down in Minneapolis. And again, a lot of people have taken notice of that because
Okay.
again, that shows you're not just like, hey, hockey, yay. It's like, okay, there's a brain. I'm not saying any of these other players don't have a brain, but I mean, they're not. Some of these guys just don't want to step up, and that's fine. That's 100% fine. He felt the need, he felt compelled, and again, that just influences me more to buy more of his stuff if I can at the right price.
I
Because
gotcha.
again, I've already had that huge man crush on him, but
That's funny you say that too, because Tristan Jarry is like an easy choice, but for me, but I think, as I've spoken with you recently, like with baseball this year, I had a man crush on Tyler Glass. I mean, the dude throws 100 miles an hour. He's 6'8". He's got the long flowing locks, and he's just nasty on the mound. Like, he didn't do as much this year, but like screaming and yelling and stuff, like not at the guys, but when he'd strike them out, like just like being pumped up, and then ball gets hit for a home run, and he says the F bomb really loud. Like, I enjoy that intensity. And
mhm.
I was watching hockey highlights and I was watching these Carolina highlights. I'm like, holy mackerel. Like even Steve, well, never mind. Steve's an expert. But even somebody who doesn't like hockey, you see a highlight and like Teravainen, no look, spins, fires at full speed across the ice, over two sticks right to Aho, who just came out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then Aho's got, I've always been a fan of these like younger players. Tebow is the same. He's 18 years old and came into the league and was starting goaltender. Sebastian Aho looks like he's 15 years old, even with the little mustache thing he does during the playoffs. Like, he looks like a baby out there, but he hits people. Like, he's vicious. He is just a nasty, competitive player, and that team is really exciting. So that's like, it was an easy thing. So I got to be careful, Dave. Instead of just buying everything of his, he's got so much out there, and he's not like Svechnikov, but he's really expensive. So I have to. It's like Steve. It's like a test of patience. Like, okay, just pick out ones that are shiny, even if they're not expensive. Like, just grab a few things that look cool, but don't like go absolutely crazy because, yeah, I don't know. I hope they do terrible. To be honest with you, I hope they do terrible this year. Their goaltender Samsonov has a lot of pressure on him, so he's either going to be something else or they're going to get worked up. But that East division is just impossible this year. No way to predict it. Yeah. Hockey lingo. I'm learning, Daniel. I'm getting there, man. But yeah, so I've definitely got a new man crush in hockey. Carolina's my second team I'm pulling for, and I'm really excited to just kind of follow along like I did with Glasnow this year, kind of discovering somebody new. And, I don't know. Do you guys have that happen in sports where you just find somebody new to root for each year, or is it kind of not as extreme for you?
Yeah, Dave, I'll let you take that.
For
Yeah.
me, it's fantasy sports. As
Mhm.
much as you don't want to sit there and commit more time to screen time,
Mhm.
for me, I'd rather do that and pick up and watch maybe a game a week instead of like 7 games a week and then do that. If I can do that and just keep up and like just look at box scores, read articles quickly, get through them,
Mhm.
you can make those decisions on the fantasy team. And like I showed you with my draft, a lot of those guys I follow. It isn't just like, oh, I'm picking whoever's the top rated. Every league, I try to follow large groups of players. Obviously, I can handle them very well because of my card collecting ways
Right.
and all the PCs I have. But like Aho, I told you I've had him for I think, the last 2 years, and now this year again.
Right.
And then I always try to pick Dumba. He's ranked low this year because coming off 2 years ago, he started like wildfire, got hurt in Calgary fighting somebody, tore his pec, was out the rest of the year basically. Came back last year, did okay, but I mean, the year before, if you'd have played that full year, he had like 10 or 11 goals mid-December for a defenseman. That's a good, great year goal-wise. So he could have had 20, 25 goals, and for a defenseman, that's absolutely unheard.
Yeah, that's way up there. Yeah.
So then that would have switched probably my collecting ways, because even in Minnesota, where it's not like mainstream, it's not one of your original sixes, or like LA, where you get a lot of the fan base, in Edmonton, the Canadian team. You have to sort of follow, and that's sort of like that. I equate that more with like following card trends. Like, okay, now Aho had a hat trick. Next game he had a goal, 3 assists, had like a plus minus of 5. The next game he had a goal, 2 assists, then 2 goals, 1 assist. You're seeing that, and you're like, okay, I can see his young gun going up because of the performance. It's not just speculative. You've got now a template. You've got stats built up. So that's how I found him, because in the Carolina, they sucked a couple of years ago. They're starting to build, get these high picks, these trades in there. And that's just how I do it with fantasy, because otherwise, if you watch the games, a lot of the time, like a baseball game, that's boring. I love baseball, but if you're sitting there coming off the rubber and you're just sitting there and massaging the ball and looking to the sky or looking over or whatever,
that's the worst.
then Garcia Power gets out of the box and he's doing his little thing. Just hit the ball, pitch the ball. You're getting paid more than any of us will ever see. Just do your job. In hockey, that's why I like watching hockey more. It's more of a continuous flow. You have very few breaks. I mean, it just seems to be maybe 1 or 2 commercials during like a period. But that it makes it easier to watch and it easier fantasy-wise to do it that way, since you don't have to invest so much time into watching a game. I mean, if you want to go back and pick up highlights, okay, maybe this nuance happens, like Ovechkin from whatever, the right circle or left circle with that wrister, you know that after a while.
Right.
But yeah, fantasy, that's the way I would recommend it. Just don't. I used to have baseball-wise, and this might have been like 02, 03 on Yahoo. I think I made like 6 or 8 emails. Because at the time, you could only have 4.
Yeah, 4 teams. Yep.
So I had like 30 teams for baseball.
I don't know how you can
Don't do
that.
that. Oh, two teams in like one setting, like CBS Sportsline, Yahoo, ESPN, wherever you go for your fantasy stuff. 2 teams max, because that you can either draft somewhat similar, or you can draft completely different and be like, okay, I just want to follow guys and guys I like and all that stuff. And that's basically what I did. I mean, just people I like and people I know will do hopefully well.
Yeah, that's definitely how I learned about players from all sports growing up. But I've actually got a question for Steve, because what you talked about reminded me of something. I've spent the last 2 weeks really studying trends. You know, I've told you the whole young gun phenomenon is just something I've completely latched onto. But I finally went outside of my box, my comfort zone box, and like found players that I wanted to buy and really follow this year. But one thing I've noticed in hockey, and you know, we got experts in the chat, so they already know this, but I'm curious, Steve, and is it the same in football? Like, does hype outweigh everything, or is performance more important in football? Because I look at Andrei Svechnikov, a guy that I just learned about 2 weeks ago, and Sebastian Aho. Their stats are nearly identical. I mean, we're talking like a couple point difference, right? Yet Svechnikov is a $75 young gun and Aho's $35. Makes no sense to me. But the hype on Svechnikov is like through the roof, so of course he's worth more. So is it the same in football as much, or do you think it's more about the performance more than the hype?
That's a tough question, Matt, because to be honest, I could argue both sides. This is my opinion, of course. So take it with a grain of salt, of course. Hype does play into things early on in the season. Market also has something to take into consideration. You know, somebody's playing for the Patriots when, you know, they were at their prime,
Right.
the Cowboys, you know, the Packers, you know, so the name recognition also plays into it. But a lot of the movement and the larger movement that you see will ultimately fall to performance based. You know, when you talk football, rookies have a better opportunity of getting on the field earlier than some of your rookies in hockey, of course. But at the same time, it's one of those in which if you were to ask me that question tomorrow, my viewpoint may be different because there's, at least in this market right now, what was, I don't want to say gospel 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it's different now.
Okay.
And that's because there's more factors that kind of come into play that dictates the ultimate performance from a card value perspective.
Okay. Yeah, it's really strange to me. Dave, you already know this, you know, because you follow modern hockey a little bit. But man, I'm so surprised at how the hype for a player, like, I mean, look at Lafreniere. I mean, Lafreniere, however you want to say it, but he hasn't stepped. He has not skated 1 minute in the NHL, and his Young Guns is over $200. And I get, like, right now with the way the hobby is, like, hype seems to be what drives a card of modern players more than anything, you know, which can also be its downfall. If he plays a week and he doesn't even have an assist or a goal in like a -5 plus minus, you know, like, you know, like his stuff's gonna drop, you know. But if he comes out and scores 3 goals, oh my gosh, dude, like his stuff is gonna be ridiculous. And so yeah, that's been really surprising to me, and I've really tried to, like, using fantasy, which is fun. You kind of, like Dave said, learn about the players and then go look up their cards and say, oh, yeah, this guy has good fantasy value, but his cards aren't worth anything right now. What's the deal? Market sucks, or his team stinks, or his just no name recognition. You know, he's playing behind really good players. So there's so many factors that I've kind of discovered. Like with Glass now, I don't really have to think about the whole hype thing. Like when he was pitching in the World Series for 4 innings, his cards were like skyrocketing because he was dominating, and then he gave up 5 runs and everything became cheap. So other than that, I've not really been in the midst of this like hype train and watched these card prices just go ridiculously high. So it's going to be interesting. It's just a whole new season of discovery, man. I'll tell you that.
Well, and you know, it's one of those in which, and I hate to use this comparison, but you know, I look at, you know, hockey as what I do in basketball. You know, lower amount of people playing time on the court at any given time or on the ice at any given time.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one of those in which there seems to be a lot more hype. You look at, for instance, the difference between Zion and Ja. Okay, prime example. Zion's stuff is still selling higher than Ja Morant. To be brutally honest, I think Ja Morant is a better ball player.
I think so too.
So there's still that hype for whatever reason about Zion.
Right.
I don't understand it. Is it because he went number 1? Who knows?
She's
But-
right, by the way. Vinny's better half. I mean, she's absolutely right. She's right, because SportsCenter pumps Zion's highlights. He has 10 points. They show all 5 of his hoops.
Yep.
Ja has 30. They show like a bucket and an assist. You know, it's like,
Yep.
okay, come on, guys. No, you're right. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me in a way, but it's like, yeah, somehow the hype has just gotten to a point where it's just like driving the market so much. I just wish somebody kept hyping Project 2020 before it became the giant steaming pile of dog crap that it is. Ugh.
I think they did enough of the hype before, and that by the time that short Griffey came, that was the proverbial straw. But to your point before with Lafreniere,
Mm-hmm.
you still have Lindros, like in the And again, Paul and some of our Canadian folks, he played for Team Canada. I don't know if it was the juniors or whatever it was in like 89, 90. You see a hulking guy out there that can move like he did.
Right.
That's why his prices were insane. Alexander Daigle, not as big, but graceful in the ice. Same thing when he came out.
Yeah.
Todd Van Poppel, you have the comparison. Okay, you're from Texas. You're 6'4", 6'5". You can throw 100 miles an hour. Who does that sound like? Oh, Nolan Ryan.
Right. So unfair.
I mean, it's when you get pigeonholed right away as like the next savior of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Taylor, same way with him. You had and so for anybody watching, it just hasn't been the last few years where you get somebody, man, Zion's going to come in and destroy everyone, and it's going to be 30 points, 25 boards. He's just going to. This isn't video game numbers. You can have them, but it's not going to be a sustained, consistent video game number. You might have like one of my favorite basketball players that I collect, Nikolai Vucevic for Orlando. He puts up 28 points. He puts up 20 boards, and nobody says a peep.
He's so good. He's such an efficient player.
I love him.
Yeah.
But again, it's another guy that people just don't care about because, again, the center position, he doesn't shoot many threes. He's not super flashy. People want the flash before they want the substance. They'll take 11 points with 3 insane dunks and maybe a behind-the-back pass before they take the Andre Drummond, Vucevic, 30 and 20 games. Or like Scott Skiles used to have like 20 assists a game. John Stockton, perfect example. He'd score 15 points. He'd have 20 assists. Nobody cared. They wanted to see Mailman trailing down the lane, thundering it over someone.
Steve Nash, same scenario.
Yeah, for sure. Well, here's the thing too, Steve, and I'm sure you'll agree with me here. I mean, football, every game is so important. Like if you have a game in basketball, you might have an off game. Like I'm a big Duncan Robinson fan. He finally got it going the last couple games, but he's been off for a few games. But you have time to build it back. Dude, in the NFL, you have 3 or 4 bad games, man. You are like, your hype is done. And I know this because I'm a Seahawk fan, and I'm still salty, and my guy played like crap for like the last 10 games of the season. He was awful. And his stock, his card market, everything, boom, just dropped. So in the NFL, dude, it's like you got it to be consistent in the NFL. I can see why the guys that are hyped and collected are that way because there's so much pressure in a sense to perform every single week, and you only have 20, 22 weeks if you're lucky enough to perform. That's it.
Yep. Well, and that's at the same time, from a current player perspective in the NFL, those are the times in which you take advantage of those lulls because all it takes is that one great game. I mean, you look at the minute Burrows and Herbert became starters, look at their stuff. It's skyrocketed.
Right.
They didn't have to win games. They just had to do fairly well.
Right.
And the better they did, the more their prices increased. It's no different than when Tua was named the starter briefly. Yep. Same scenario. Burrows get hurt. The market is still strong because of his potential, but it drops significantly. So it's one of those in which, at least for football, it's a little bit easier to gauge some of it on when to buy, when to sell, than it is in any other sport sometimes. Because right now, I still don't understand the basketball market.
No, it don't make any sense.
The 90s insert stuff, I get. Yeah. I get. That's been a thing for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was Jordan mostly and a few others from time to time, but it's been there for, I can't even tell you. It's been there for 15 plus years probably.
Right.
Then now you've got baseball. So basketball started the trend. Baseball shortly followed. Now you've got hockey picking up steam from the hockey, from the insert perspective.
Well, and from the Gretzky sale too, man. That just put everybody on notice for hockey, man. $1 million card.
But for Gretzky.
Right.
Maybe not so much.
That just kind of trickles down, man. Like, it's like, oh, hockey's so cheap. Let's go in and buy some cards. And now young guns are going, like, it's crazy, dude.
And then, football still hasn't really caught up, except for those iconic named inserts that are transcendent across multiple sports.
I find that so strange because you look at all 4 sports, you would say that football would define like American sport because it's like the grittiest, toughest, like all American sport because nobody else in the world knows how to play that sport decently. Yeah, I don't care who it is. I mean, if you're Canadian, I'm sorry, but they suck. So, it's like they are amazing at hockey. That's what they do. And so, of course, the hockey market's going to be there. So I'm really surprised that NFL hasn't followed. So I have to ask before I forget, which card did you end up buying from last week? Because I came in for a week or
Neither.
for about an hour. Really?
Neither.
Too expensive, or what happened?
So the gold parallel that is damaged.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll repeat myself earlier. It's not damage. It's a flaw.
Okay.
It's a defect. So it went up and got relisted. So it's out there again. I'm still, same price.
Okay.
I'm still teetering on the other. It's one of those in which it's like.
Well, I mean, but you said it. I think for me too, I'm looking at that. Like, if that was Alex Rodriguez, right? Like, he's got a lot of Pacific inserts out of like 10 or parallels, excuse me, or like a wild vinyl. Like, that's my like most wanted Pacific card ever made of him. If that had like a little defect thing in it, yeah, I wouldn't be like pleased, and it would be like, cool, I have it, into the box it goes. But to be able to have like a piece of history in that sense, a card that's so rare like that Terrell, I would pass up.
The hard part for me is if it were chipping along the edges, if there was a ding to the corner,
Yep.
I could deal with that more because it's still aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
That, after you pointed it out, because like I said, I had noticed
I
it
thought it was
before.
on the case. Yeah, I thought it was on the case.
And when I found out that picture is without the top of the mag, and it takes away from the eye appeal, and that's the part that it's like, you knock it down 60%, then maybe we'd sit there and say, okay, I could do that from a placeholder perspective, but
yeah, I hear you, dude.
It's the aesthetically pleasing part that really drives me on some of this. I know Dave hates refractor lines. I'm not a fan of them.
Nope.
But there are certain cards, with or without a refractor line,
Yep.
if the opportunity presents itself, you do what you can to pick it up.
Well, there's if you have the kind of money, there's a Ken Griffey Jr. Red Crusade on eBay with a refractor line, and I bet you that sucker is going to go for $10K easy with that refractor line across the top, and those Star Factor limited exposures, Dave. I don't know if it's the same in hockey because Tebow doesn't have one, so I've kind of stayed away. But Alex Rodriguez, the last one I lost had a refractor line on the one side, but I don't care. Like, that card, I just am like, who freaking cares? There's 40 of them. But on a base refractor, yeah, nope, see ya.
Yeah.
care.
So the rare stuff, speaking of which, I mean, I've got. So because I haven't integrated my stuff. You can see it at the top. I mean, it's there.
It's subtle though. I mean, in that card, that's too nice of a card.
But I mean, it's there. But it didn't. That did not push me away.
Right.
But that gold parallel, and it's the rarity is the hard part, but I can tell just by the interaction from the seller and knowing the history of how they obtained that card and what they paid for the lot.
Yeah.
The fact that he finally dropped it to the 109.99 type situation, because he had listed it, I think, 4 or 5 times at $249.99,
Right.
because trying to recoup some of the money, because all he wanted was the base parallel to 5. So the lot included the base parallel to 5, the close-ups, and the playoff zone number to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So he needed the base parallel, paid the full price of the eBay listing, buy it now best offer, paid $750 for the lot of 3.
Wow.
way overpaid, and then listed the other two up. But he was trying to recoup that money because he was comfortable with paying $250, I guess, for the base parallel to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Not paying that.
Well, especially in that condition, if that thing was like darn near pristine, and had just a little bit of chipping or something, then that card wouldn't be on eBay anymore; it'd be gone. Either you would have it or somebody else. So
absolutely,
that's such a bad move to take. I mean, I'm all in on if I'm going to try to get a card that's going to appreciate in value. You kind of try to find something you can go low end on, not a project card. That's why I'm so salty about it, because it was such a stupid idea. But buying something low and seeing if it'll appreciate with a current player, that's about the only safe bet, or a vintage graded card. So yeah, that's too bad, especially with the damage. Dude, I'm really bummed. I was definitely not saying it's damage to like, haha, it's damage. I was like, better check.
No, and that part of that is a detriment for me in the way that I look at my eBay stuff. Mm-hmm. I add stuff to my watch list all the time, and then I'll get notification of, hey, auction's about to end. And then that's when I start really starting to look at stuff. And by then, sometimes it's too late. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah, sometimes.
But, I can appreciate you bringing that to my attention, which then led me to engage the seller and pose the questions. And it's like, right, rare or not, and it's not going to change my feelings towards my Terrell Davis collection. Mm-hmm. It'll never be complete by any stretch of the imagination in my mind. Yeah, it will never be complete. Right. But that's the collector gene, and if you're a player collector, it won't ever be complete until you technically own one of everything, which is
never going to happen.
Damn near impossible, unless, as Vinny's better half alluded to it earlier, unless you have endless funds. It's not feasible, and it's not, for most of us, it's not going to happen.
Wouldn't be any fun if you could, though, right? Like if you had endless funds.
Oh, it would.
It would.
So? Oh, yeah, it would.
It wouldn't be the same. Dave would just have like 500 player PCs and just do the same thing, but with 50 more guys, 100 more guys, and I would just buy every Aho card I could and not even think. But I don't know, man, because we're kind of limited, though, when you do land that one big card, when Dave hopefully gets that certain card that we've been messaging about. I mean, that is going to be freaking awesome. If you just had the freaking ridiculous amount that he asked Dave and was like, sure, I'll just pay it, and be like, all right, guys, look what I got. On to the next one. Look at this nice little card. Right, Carlos? So
Decent.
Yeah, decent. But you know what I mean? I think there is something to be said about that. And when you do land like that flurry last week, that pristine gold, I mean, dude, I freaking was pumped. But if I just paid the $150 he added up for originally and was like, well, next card, I mean, for me, it would just be different. It would be fun, you're right, but on a different way, on a different level. So.
And that's sort of with cards too. Again, we want to know, like you picked up, I think it was the flurry of the price, the Carey Price. I think the guy that pack pulled it.
Oh, that was so cool, dude! Yeah, he bought one pack, pulled the price. Yeah.
You know the history. So even if you don't know the history, let's say it's pack pulled by that guy, sells it to you, you remember if there's a monster card that you got, as soon as you saw that and the wheels started churning, oh crap, how am I going to try to make this happen? Then you make it happen, then 2-3 years down the road, or 10 or 20, you'll remember that because, again, at the time, and it might not hold the prominence that it held at the time, but it'll still be a card that you're like, man, I am super stoked to get this. And then you take it out of a box 10 years later, you're like, I remember that time. We were getting something ping new search for eBay. And then it's like, well, I got your attention gets diverted. And then you try to put the wheels in motion. That's a lot of the investor type folks don't have that. They don't have like the A, nostalgia, and the B, the meaning of the card, other than just being a piece of tangible cardboard that can come with it.
Right.
And I mean, not everybody's going to have that. If we expect that's fool's gold that we're hoping for.
it changes the appreciation.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And it's one of those in which I know all of us have probably daydreamed, and well, if we won the lottery, what would we do? Type situation.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, okay, depending on the amount of money, do I stay in my house? Do I buy a bigger house, but do I pay cash? What, babe?
Buy a bigger one.
Buy a bigger one. My wife already has decided, buy a bigger one.
I need the space for me. You and Tori have space. I
Wow.
need space.
My wife says she needs space for her. You've taken over my space.
It's
But
in your
anyways,
space. Your football shit's in there.
but you still took over my space.
I have a desk.
I don't have a space anymore. You took it over.
You took up my space here. You took up my
Oh,
space in the bedroom.
shut up. Go do what you're doing. So you got a live disagreement with my wife and I for the first episode on the new channel. Matt's the first guest on the first episode that'll be uploaded on the new channel. The real
Wait, hold
episode.
on. The new channel. What are we talking about? Is there like a podcast channel now? I wasn't aware. I just clicked a link.
Well, we created the Insert Revolution podcast YouTube channel, so there is a new channel.
Oh, nice. Well, I feel honored to be the first guest on here. I'm surprised you didn't invite somebody more popular on here instead of some dude from Sitka, Alaska.
This isn't a popularity contest. If that was the case, Dave and I would neither be here.
That's true.
It's a like-minded appreciation for the same things.
Right. That's funny.
But no, I mean, I've always sat there and thought about, okay, well, shit, if I won the lottery, you take care of those things that you would as responsible adults. Mm-hmm. You may help your parents, you may help your siblings, things along those lines. But, from a collection perspective, I would say my focus would change a little bit. Although that, yes, I would love to continue to add stuff to the Terrell Davis collection. I would focus on stuff that I have always wanted.
Kid, leave that up there for a second.
Thanks, Paul.
You have to remember, like me, coming from like a teacher's perspective, where like nothing like that could ever get on my microphone. Like to hear that on a live broadcast, man, that's why I came here, just to be a part of something like that. So next we'll have Dave's wife coming in there and telling him like, "How many more PCs do you need?" Like something like that. That would just be the trump all of the night.
So Ty, I'd just like to go on record. Everything that I have is shit. Everything my kid has is shit. Anything that she has is stuff. There's the clarification.
Man, your wife sounds like somebody who came straight up from the East Coast talking like that, man. That's funny.
No,
when I was there, like when I went to New Jersey for the first time, everybody in the store talked to each other like that. I was like, Jesus, what is going on here, man? It was weird.
I'm getting the death stare.
Well deserved.
Yes, dear.
Actually, the only thing I said was shit of yours is your football stuff that's everywhere.
That's what he said. He said, she said your football shit. Man, my wife has more respect than she does for cardboard. I said, well, that's why I clarified. All my stuff is shit. All my kids' stuff is shit, but hers is stuff.
I did not say our kids' stuff is shit. I said your football stuff is shit.
You call it shit too, so.
Well,
I'm not wrong.
I know who's sleeping on the couch tonight, and it's not me.
My wife.
Oh, gosh.
He says, I know who's sleeping on the couch tonight. I said, my wife.
He's just digging further and further. I think his head's about right here in the hole right now. He's like barely peeking up over.
I'm wearing my galoshes, so I'm good. We've had this conversation before, Vinny. It's actually quite scary. They're of no relation, but it's really scary.
Steve's wife and Vinny's life are related. Oh, okay. Thanks for the laugh, man. Holy smokes.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Gotta have some fun.
I mean, we are talking about cards, but man, it just went to a whole new place right there. That is hilarious. Ooh.
See, that's what you won't get anywhere else, though.
This is true. You guys should brand it as that and just have one of your significant others just show up and start something during the podcast. That's funny stuff.
So the better half It has nothing to do with witnesses. This is just how we are. I don't need protection.
As all I want to do is see something go boom past his head.
Shit, you're gone in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, you just saw her with the fist in the face. Keep talking, and we're gonna see. Yeah, she's nothing but a teddy bear. She don't scare me.
Wow, I'm very different. At least you said I was nice.
Where's the mute button at before things get out of hand? Oh my god!
It's always within clicks reach.
As is the frying pan she's going to whack you over the head with here real soon.
No, that would require her to actually go into the kitchen.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh. Wow.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, and I just unplugged myself.
Dude, hasn't that ladder been there for like 3 weeks? Come on, man. Okay, I do have one serious question, though. Every time you were on the podcast, I hear beep, beep, beep in the background. Like, did somebody put something in the oven and just never take it out for the last 3 months? Or, like, what's going on, man? What's the beeping in the house?
Hold on. Hold the phone.
I know this.
I'm struggling here. So, that is our alarm system that is no longer active. That the battery is getting low, and we haven't bothered to change the battery or disconnect it from the backup battery. So we've dealt with it long enough that we don't even pay attention to it.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Man, I think my hairs are all standing up on end. I'm so nervous. A, from the arguing on camera, and B, that beeping and you being okay with it. Oh my gosh.
There's no arguing. It's all in good fun.
Okay.
And my wife is a fantastic cook, but I said that very softly so she didn't hear it anyways.
Yeah, Steve's not brave enough to let that thing fly out.
No.
Yeah. Till your wife goes back and somehow watches this and she's like, "What did you say? You're eating ramen for a week, pal." Oh,
she wouldn't watch this. Her thought process and all of this, when I remind her it's podcast night, it's not like we haven't done this for 22 weeks now. It's almost half a year. It's like, hey, babe, it's podcast night. Oh, yeah, that freaking thing.
Well, at least you have something to look forward to, man. I do always enjoy these, for sure. I got a fun thing planned for Poke Checking Cards. As Dave knows, the Instagram community is just top notch, and there's 8 of us total that are going to do like a roundtable discussion type thing and just bring a topic every Sunday, and just talk about it for an hour and a half, and we've got a lot of fun ideas and ways to just make it for that Instagram community, and then maybe other people show up, like you or somebody else who's not quite in that Instagram community. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited to be focused on hockey completely. It's fun. So,
well, I am there. I just haven't really started posting a whole lot yet. But
that was good communication. No, I'm too picky. I do live in Sitka, where like the people that are the people worth being with are married. So I'm not even going there. Another year here, and then it'll be off to Washington, I think.
So Matt, I do have to ask, because I've always been curious. Why Alaska? Did work take you there?
Mom married stepdad who was from Alaska. Then we moved here when I was in high school, and I went to college here for a couple years and went down south to Arizona, complete opposite place, and then graduated from there a few years later because of just credit crap. It was just a nightmare. I ended up coming back and student teaching here, and then been back ever since. So I'm starting to get to that point. You can only live in a town of 8,500 people. That's like 2/3 males, and get through life. My dad lives in Washington, so does my best friend from high school. So eventually I will get down in that area around Bellingham, I think is where I'll end up, and be able to see my dad more often. I get to see him once a year, twice a year if I'm lucky. And now that hockey's coming back to Seattle, man, I cannot wait to go to games with him and watch hockey with my dad. I've never been to a professional hockey game with him, and that's kind of a bucket list thing that'll hopefully get crossed off here next winter when the Seattle Kraken are hopefully doing well. So that'll be fun.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, man. That'd be awesome.
I've been to 2 hockey games in my life. Both were a blast. My mother and father divorced when I was 6 months old, so I didn't know him until later on in life. Will not go down that stretch of road, so to speak. My stepdad is not a sports person. I mean, he loves football, but he's not one of those that ever had any intention of ever going to a sporting event, so to speak. But one of my fondest childhood memories, and all of you guys can go look this up from an individual perspective or from a person perspective. Keith Grant for the Dallas Mavericks, who's like now a VP of player development or something within the Dallas Mavericks. He used to be our next door neighbor when I lived with my grandparents.
Oh, cool.
Back in the 80s.
Wow.
And back when the Mavericks really sucked. So mid 80s, late 80s into the early 90s. But as an employee for the Mavericks, he got season tickets.
Right.
And, from a basketball perspective, they play, 80-something games or whatever.
Games.
You can't very well go to every game. So a lot of the times he would give the tickets to my grandparents. And my grandfather, my grandmother, and I would go to the Mavs because they had one kid. So my sister babysat all 3 of their kids at one point in time in their life. But they always had 3 tickets. And a parking pass. That's back when Reunion Arena was still around, which most of you have no idea what Reunion Arena is, but it was demolished and now it's the American Airlines Center. That's where they play now. It didn't replace it, so to speak. I'm pretty sure the Reunion Arena is still there, but doesn't get used very often. But, they weren't like courtside seats. We're not talking, but they were decent seats. They were. So you had, the basketball court here, for instance. You had the stands that would go up both sides, the ones behind the goalpost, and then you'd have ones that were at an angle in between both of those. And that's where the seats were, and they were like 7 rows up, so you could see everything.
That's good. That was good seats, yeah.
And, a ton of memories, a ton of games. I think I still have almost every ticket stub from when we went to watch the games.
That's cool.
And, I got to see Jordan play. I got to see Shaq when he was a rookie. So I had the opportunity to see a lot of the superstars of the game. And the best – I won't say the best memory, but, one of the fondest memories, though, is he actually took me one time to where they practiced. And you're thinking, okay, so it's going to be some kind of like nicer place type situation. Oh, hell no. It was like in a warehouse district, not far from where my mother worked at the bank where she worked. It was a warehouse district. And you would have never thought. But the fact of going and watching the team practice, I played racquetball with Gar Hurd's son, who was one of the assistant coaches back in those days, because we couldn't spend all our time actually watching them practice.
Of course, right.
But to sit there and watch them and be up close and shake hands and everything, it was pretty freaking cool. And then now he's like a major freaking bigwig. He and his wife actually showed up to my grandmother's funeral when she passed away. And so Dallas won 2011.
Yes, they did.
So that's the year my grandmother passed. And I think he was still drunk from the celebration. Oh.
That was nice of them to come that soon after they beat Dwayne Wade, the Heat, and some guy that forgot how to play for the playoffs. Yeah. I'm not salty about that at all. Don't worry.
So I guess you're a Heat fan?
I've been a Dwayne Wade fan. I was for the entirety of his career. Seeing him play for the first time in Seattle when the Sonics were there, it's something I'll never forget. There was a snowstorm warning, and we drove down there anyway and drove back. And my dad, being one of the best drivers that the police force had at the time, he worked his way through the snow and all the obstacles in between getting home. And yeah, we stayed and watched Dwayne Wade and the Heat beat the Sonics. It was beautiful. Yeah, awesome. Seeing my hero play in person for the first time, I'll never forget that.
He did win a championship, though, so...
He won three. He won three. Let's not forget.
I wasn't quoting specifics. I was just stating he at least won a championship.
No, he did. No, and in Dallas, I mean, they deserved that. Dirk was unbelievable, those playoffs. And LeBron averaged, 12 points a game in the finals? Yeah, so he got the message, and then they won two in a row, LeBron. So, Dave, have you you and your family ever gone to games together? I don't know if I've ever heard about that. Did your dad ever take you to games or anything like that?
He died before I turned 14. It was 3 weeks before I turned 14. And my brother would be my half brother. I just call him my brother from my dad's first marriage. Was in the Navy, and he was in Minneapolis, and so he was able. I think he worked somehow with the Vikings, or with the sports down there. So he was able to get tickets once in a while. So I was able to see. I think I only went to one basketball game, and we were behind the basket stanchion. Probably 10 rows back, 10 rows in Steve about, and it was the Jazz. I remember because Mark Eaton was the biggest human at that point I'd ever seen. Absolutely monstrous. I think he was 7'3", 250, 240. I mean, he's just, if you look him up back with Stockton, Malone, Thurl Bailey, all those guys back then. Because I think this was 90 or 91 we went down there. Because the first year the Timberwolves played at the Metrodome. And I remember my dad's oh, there's Chris Dolman. There's Al Noga over there. And they're 4 rows behind us. So, I mean, he went over. He was a bit under the wobbly pops. So he brought us over there and we met them. And, I mean, you could tell they didn't really want to be bothered, obviously, but seeing that and then seeing kids, I mean, got to shake Dolman's hand and Noga, and I was, again, then it wasn't like today where you had all these platforms. You had sports everywhere. You had Sports Center. That's what you had, and whatever they showed, and I was 10, 11 at the time, whatever they showed, and then if you wanted to read a paper, and even then, it's I don't want to read a paper. I'm 10 or 11. I got to do that for school.
I read box scores. Those
yeah,
are fun.
I mean, that's when I was in high school, I'd sit there and I'd write down stats all the time.
Yeah.
But football-wise, who was it? My brother and I, and then the one in the Navy. So both my brothers, and then he went to Green Bay. We watched Packers-Vikings game, I think in 91.
Oh, what an intense game that must have been.
And those were lean. I think Vikings were a little better, but the Pack was awful. That was Don Makowski time, and that was not good.
Good until Favre showed up, right? Basically. Yeah.
Basically would have been the next year, I think. A couple games in. But that was, and then I've been to football games since then. Hockey, I was supposed to go in March. That Wednesday night, Utah and the Pelicans or whoever it was postponed because Rudy Gobert and COVID.
And then it was just
the next day at noon. Gary Bettman says, "Well, we're postponing the season."
Yeah.
That night, 3 rows behind the penalty box.
Oh man, no way. Well, it's going to make it really, really sweet for all of us when we're able to step foot in an arena again. My good friend Tyler and I've told him, dude, as soon as things are good for fans, even half capacity for the Penguins, like next Christmas or whatever, we've got to go. We've got to go to a game. And I've seen the Penguins play once in Arizona, which was a beautiful thing, halfway. Fleury started. If you remember, there was that one year he got off to a really rocky start and Brent Johnson was playing a lot more. Well, he won the previous game, so I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to put Fleury in. So I'm watching my favorite player in the net get scored on twice in the first 10 minutes, gets yanked. And I already known I was going to get a chance to see the players after the game. So Dupuis and these guys signed my shirt, and I remember Marc-Andre Fleury, he looked so upset. He came out of that locker room, and I wanted so bad to get a picture with him, and he was so pissed. But he ended up winning like 10 games in a row after that. But watching the Penguins beat the Coyotes on a shootout and Crosby being the one to score the game-winning shootout goal, it was like everybody hated him there, and it was awesome. So I can't wait to see hockey in person again. There's nothing – I don't care what sport you're talking about. I've been to every sport. There's nothing like a hockey game in person, man. There's nothing like it. It's amazing.
So since we're talking about stories, my only major sports story that has some sort of significance, though, I don't know if this is going to pick up. Does anybody know what significance that is?
Rangers Blue Jays, May 1st, 1991. Rangers Blue Jays. What would be this?
Nolan Ryan, it's got to be.
Oh, no hitter. Yeah.
Which one?
Last.
Was that his last one?
Number 7.
Nice. Heck yeah, dude. That is. You got to see that in person.
I was there. I have and what's sad is I actually had my ticket stub. We had 4 tickets. So I went with my cousin and her boyfriend. My cousin lived with my grandparents for a couple years. And part of it, I think, had to do with the boyfriend. But they had 4 tickets. But it was her, him, and myself who went. So I actually had like a full ticket, but because of its age, it fell apart. So I actually had an unused ticket. Kind of disappointing, but I also have the program that he actually. So his name was Bo, but he filled out the program as the game took place. So I actually still had the program with the box score and everything else. And that was really a freaking badass experience, to say the least, to see that live.
I say everybody needs to go out and find. Is it Tom House? He's the pitching coach. He was his pitching coach, and now he has an amazing company for pitchers. Go find his interview. I'm sure you've already watched this, Steve. Go watch his interview about Nolan Ryan's his warm up in the bullpen prior to that game, and listen to the story of how it was like the most improbable no-hitter of all time. That's all I want to say. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but anybody that's watching, or if you and Dave haven't seen it,
I'll have to go watch that.
Go look up Tom House talking about that game, and it will, I think, for me, that's why I think that no-hitter ticket has such significance, and I wasn't even a baseball fan then. It will make you love that even more than you already do. That's all I'm going to say. Definitely got to go check that out. It's unreal to think that he did what he did that night. So, anyways.
I'll have to go check it out. Is it on YouTube?
Yeah. Would you like me to post a link for everybody? I could do that in case anybody wants to see it. It's really something else.
Please, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, this is definitely here it is right here. It's got 13,000 views, so people have I think most people kind of have a beat on this now, which is really cool.
But also, not to change the subject, but since there's a few older YouTube guys in the chat still. Thanks, Matt, for doing that.
Yeah.
Who remembers this?
What in the... No clue what that is.
Dave remembers these.
Oh, did Dave just...
Oh,
Dave,
he probably clicked the wrong button.
Dave, there's a way to do you know how to zoom in on one person? I'm sorry to be a teacher here for a second, but do you know how to put him on full blast when he's showing a card? I don't know if it's the same on iPhone or not.
On his phone, he hadn't figured it out. But okay, so the history on these for the newer folks, Gary, King of Steak, did cards for the sports card collecting community. And he did, was it 4 iterations, Dave? Or 5?
4 or 5.
It was 4 or 5. So this was called Tube Traders like debut edition, and this was like the largest checklist. So you had to ask to be in it, and then you had to pay X amount of money. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't like substantial, $20 or $25 or whatever. But then you also had to submit memorabilia. So this, like, if you go back and watch some of my old videos, that Reebok tag is from my old orange Bronco hat that I've worn in some of my videos.
Oh, gotcha.
And then he sent stickers.
Cool. That's
And, so it's not on here, but this is a 101. This is the only one that exists.
Okay.
That I had to acquire from somebody who pulled this card because he inserted them in packs. So that money that you spent also was the creation of the cards and then the pack out. And everybody who was in it got a pack. And the whole expectation and premise behind it was to trade with fellow collectors, to whether you wanted to get your own stuff or you wanted to get an autograph of, somebody else that's one of your friends or whatever. Mm-hmm. So this is the only patch card. I think every base card had 4 or 5 autos, which I've sent to other collectors who wanted them of mine. Mm-hmm. And I actually have a dual patch auto, which I was supposed to be sharing with a fellow Bronco collector that disappeared from YouTube, and I never got it back.
Yeah, that's like sharing a card is almost impossible unless it's like you and Dave, because it's so close. So yeah, times are different.
Yep.
For sure.
Ty,
Cool,
did you have something that you were wanting to say, or were you just indicating that this was me?
Oh, okay. That's funny. No, that's cool, man. That's the old YouTube days were certainly different. You guys have talked about that, and I found that to be quite interesting. How different YouTube is now. I mean, I think it's in a really good place, but yeah, that's pretty cool.
I mean, it was. I was trying to think, because like the first group had Chris Justice, Chad, as just Chad Redfern. That was before Firehand cards became a thing.
Yeah, no clue that is. No, Chris is Chris Justice. My first breaker I ever watched.
Yep. Bryofia, some of the people who had been around early on, and then it kind of expanded a little bit in the second series. But I want to say this checklist, and maybe this was Tube Traders 3, was more mass produced because of the amount of people that were in it. Mm-hmm. But it was still a cool thing because once it was created, you started looking for videos. I wanted my patch auto. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I wanted it. And I ended up getting quite a few of my friends at the time, and some of which I'm still friends to this day, their base auto.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm surprised you didn't, with send out some of those really nice cards and have them be on card in a sense. Just like send you a little flat rate box with like 50 cards that need to be autographed, and you just do your thing and send them back to them. But that's way back in the day. I think now you could probably pull it off a bit easier than back then. The stickers were definitely the way to go, but I think it would be really cool if somebody were to do that again, to pack them all out and send them out to you and have you auto them all up and send them back. So.
Well, Gary had hits memorabilia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know if he still does it or not, so to speak. But I mean, he went and bought authentic memorabilia pieces through various auction houses, I'm guessing, and created cards. And, not licensed, of course, but legitimate memorabilia, licensed memorabilia, and some really cool looking cards. I mean, because who doesn't like a freaking big jumbo five color patch? I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, there's the eye appeal that's there. And that's what he did. And, he had all the pieces of equipment to allow for the card create. And this, I mean, it's decent card stock, but these look like legitimate cards, like through a manufacturer. I mean, he did some really cool stuff, some die cut patch sets. They were cool. If anybody takes an opportunity, and Ty, I'm not ignoring your question. Go back and look for videos for Tube Traders 3, I think is actually what it was. And just go look at some of the pack openings and some of the designs. Really cool stuff.
For him, I think, and I don't remember 100%, but I think he's taken a lot of his stuff down. I don't remember, but I want to say he's one of the guys that may have taken some stuff down at some point in time, if not all of it.
Okay.
But I remember him showing
pack openings is what I was getting at, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure those are going to be up, but I remember he had, and I don't know if it was on blog or if it was on YouTube, sort of like, it wasn't his process, but he just showed like, here's my corner of like making cards. Here's this printing machine, here's this cutting machine, here's this and that. Here's a computer to do like the editing or whatever. He's a big bonds collector. I know he still collects bonds, so you might see him in like the Facebook with Gary O'Brien.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So King of Steak, yeah, he definitely Northeast feel to him as well. I mean, there's that chip on the shoulder and little attitude. So, but I think that's what made the community, I won't say a little better, because now the community aspect of YouTube, at least for me, it's starting to round more into form. You have that outer periphery shit that's more noticeable now because of the editing software 10 years ago wasn't there.
Right.
But you knew back then if you had a rotten apple or a rotten egg, you knew within a couple weeks, and they were gone within a month or so.
Right.
Now it seems sort of like those people, and again, your perspective, my perspective, anyone's perspective on what a rotten apple is going to be different. I mean, we'll have stuff that overlaps and whatnot, but those people seem to stay around a little more, and they seem to be accepted by more folks. Again, I don't know if that's just like a climate of the world as is, or you just you want to shy away from whatever negative stuff. Like, man, I don't know if I believe in that. But man, they're showing some nice stuff. Man, these graphics are just spot on, and when they get the editing in there, and man, there's like 800 comments. I think I want to be a part of this, even though there's other factors. I don't know, that's cringeworthy. But no, I want to be a part of it. Back then, it was try to send out a just because, if you can. Put up your mail day videos, comment when you can. Again, not every video is like mine then. They usually had 10 minutes or under. I know a lot of people could only do 15 minutes. And under Danny and Alan, Hardy, the Juan Gonzalez collector, they could only go to 14:59 or their stuff would get cut off. So you had time to watch a lot of videos if you could parcel it in. Now there's a lot of stuff that's 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Oh, dude.
I get where people won't watch on this shit. I don't expect people to watch them. Again, unless you're going to bed at night and you want something to fall asleep to. Perfect. But
I put it on when I'm cooking dinner.
I mean, I've heard a lot of like I'll drive and I'll listen to a podcast of your videos, cooking dinner or just like at work and it's on the background sorting cards. Like it's perfect as long as you get the general gist and the message. So, but yeah, it was different, but it was the same. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and I will say too, like, yeah, the ability to design cars. A guy that came to mind, if anybody's heard of Tanner Jones, I mean, he's designed some of the coolest custom cars I've ever seen. And if he did something like that, oh my gosh, man! But the technology that people have and creating you can make your own refractor type cars at home, all that stuff. I think if anybody like that did a set like that, oh man, that would just be so cool. But yeah, I think it's cool to hear about the older YouTube days, because when I came around, I kind of tried to do that at first, but then I realized, well, everybody's been doing that. It's just showing. I mean, for me personally, everybody's been showing cards. You two guys have been around, so you're just sticking to what you've been doing. So that's your cup of tea. For me, I was like, well, I've got to find my niche, and I've got to find something that separates me from somebody else, because everybody else is doing that already. So that's something I try to be conscientious of when I'm doing videos, is to provide something that nobody else has done. And that's hard to do nowadays, because there's a lot of collectors on YouTube, and like Ziri Gaming, he's got this like weird thing that would drive most people nuts, and it's annoying to me, but that's his thing, it's his shtick, and I appreciate that. So it's certainly way more uniqueness out there than I think there was back then, which is cool to see.
And Ty, just to circle back to your question real quick, Dave kind of put it in a nutshell. It's asking about charlatans back then.
All right.
They've always been there, but that's kind of what Dave was alluding to. A bad apple could come in, and within a matter of a few weeks or whatnot, most people would have it figured out, and they'd go away as quick as they showed up. The difference is, I don't want to say there seems to be more of a following or appreciation for that type of content or those type of individuals. I can't put my finger on it, but as we've always said, there's a place for all types of content, whether it be informative, whether it be collection related, whether it be the top 5, whatever. There's a place for all of it. More so nowadays than there was back then. Back then it was through interactions that you found out about these individuals.
Right.
They weren't posting, that type of content on YouTube. Now it's accepted more than it was then, because back then it really was more about the community. Not saying that that's not what we are about.
Right.
But there's different, I don't want to call them even niches, but there's different groups more so now than what there was then. And that's because of the varying differences in the content.
Right. No, but I mean, the community feel, those are the people that I subscribe to. You know what I mean? Yeah, without naming names, there's a baseball collector out there who has great lighting, who shows off amazing cards, but it's kind of just like, here's a card, here's a card, here's a card, and you see 30 cards. I'm going to show you these. He doesn't tell me why I'm looking at them. He doesn't tell me why he loves them. Okay, sorry. This isn't a personable thing. Nope. And so I think those are the guys that, like you're saying, in the olden days, that approached it from that way. Maybe their video and their lighting wasn't very good, but you got to hear the connections and the stories, which is just like when I'm watching a Dave Mail Day video. He typically will talk about every single card and why he collects the 563 players that he does. I don't have to wonder why. But you know what I mean, Dave? Like, I think that's those are the type of people that I enjoy, and I've been thinking a lot about that musical top 20 that I posted, and as much as I love it, I think I can understand why a lot of people were like, I want to hear you talk about each of them. And so it was a fun experiment, and one that for me and my dad were musically inclined. I think that was a lot of fun for me, but it is cool to hear the stories behind the cards. And so those are the people that I tend to subscribe to and follow, rather than just here's a card, here's a card, here's a card. All right, later.
Well, on the flip side of that, though, Matt, and I know you know this, and preaching to the choir, but you're never going to please everybody, regardless of what content you put out there. It's for your enjoyment. Mm-hmm. And you do this because this is something that you enjoy. You're not, and this is going to sound really bad, but you're not doing it for everybody else. For those people who appreciate you as an individual and are, building those relationships and those friendships and things along those lines, it's irrelevant what you're showing. We're there because we want to support you.
Right. Well, hopefully you want to see like a couple of cool cards along the way, but I hear what you're saying for sure.
You could show 50 base cards. And this is what I'm getting. No, this is what I'm getting at though. If it is always in my mind, if it's about the friendships, right. I don't comment on a lot of videos. I've always been bad about that. And I get behind on a lot of videos. But damn it, if I put it in my watch later list, I will watch it.
Right.
And you will get a thumbs up because it's to support you and the individual because of building those relationships and those friendships. So,
for sure.
I've kind of, had the internal thought from time to time to revamp things and trying to spice up some of my videos, but it's like, you know what? No, I don't want this to be work. I want there to still be some enjoyment of making the video, showing off some of the cards, telling the stories, because as you alluded to, that's really what allows us the opportunity to get inside one person's mind and their thought process and their appreciation and things along those lines, which allows those friendships to continue to build.
No, I hear what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying for sure, man.
So I hate to deviate though, but since Matt brought it up and my dogs are over here roughhousing, since he mentioned goals, yes, I'm actually going to get on topic. I know it's crazy.
Before this 2-hour mark, look at that.
Before the 2-hour mark. I was more conscious of your time because I know typically you have a set amount of time that you're able to be here and be a part of the podcast.
Especially because what I do for 6 hours a day is do this with 20 or 15 children. So, but this is nice. I mean, this is certainly laid back, so I don't mind it. But yeah, I got about another 45 minutes or so. So yeah, go for it, man.
But I wanted to give since you had brought it up as what the focus on, give you an opportunity from a guest perspective and let you kind of talk through that is it if you make goals, because I will throw this out real quick. Actually, I'm going to read the text message. I'm going to go back to this real quick because this was quite humorous. Dave knows where I'm going with this. So Dave sent me a text message, and he's like, LOL, watching your vid now and thinking about what I just posted. LOL. So in other words, what he posted for the topic of the episode while watching my top 20 of 2020 video and talking about I didn't make no goals for 2021. Right. So it was kind of quite ironic, but go ahead, Matt.
Oh,
shoot.
Geez. They're important, man. I think I have to be a goal-driven collector. I don't know. I mean, if I didn't, if I just said I'm going to collect goalies, even though I would just love to say that, oh my gosh, I mean, I could buy anything, Think about that. Dave knows. I mean, there are so many cool goalie. Carlos said this, careful going down the rookie patch auto from the Cup. You can find them for 15 to 20 bucks, and all of a sudden you've bought 10 of them, and you're like, oh crap, what just happened? Mm-hmm. For me, like Dave, and I've always been a player guy, and so I am going to collect. This year, obviously, hockey. I'm at the peak of my hockey interest since I was probably 8 years old. I'm at that point again, which is pretty cool to talk about, honestly, because I never thought it would happen. But I think, focusing on a couple of specific players, and then kind of staying in the goalie realm, but being careful with where to go with that. Like just finding a goalie with a cool story, like Leland Irving, who I have yet to record an episode about, but the first or a guy who had cancer as a kid and he grew up and still made it to the NHL and is still continuing to play now despite being my age, I think is awesome. Stuff like that. So finding guys with cool stories, and then of course I have to show this card. Waiting for him to become a beast. Tristan Jarry, he's the goalie for the Penguins. He's going to get most of the starts unless he completely falls apart, which I don't expect will happen. He's a good goaltender. But focusing on hockey and then goalies for Pittsburgh, trying to grab some more Fleury cards I think is important. I've always loved collecting Marc-Andre Fleury here and there and kind of focusing in and finding cards of him. And then, again, obviously my new man crush in hockey, grabbing some cards of Sebastian Aho. And I don't want to tell too many people about that because pretty soon everybody's going to go grab his cards. He's a freaking beast. But it's fun. So just trying to find out more about the game of hockey and doing that through collecting is really my goal. I mean, I can't tell you what collecting glass now is going to be like because, he's the main guy in Tampa now. So with Blake Snell being traded. So he's going to be featured a lot more. So I might have to be a little more careful of what I go for. But, yeah, my other collections are pretty much to bed. A-Rod, I might get a card a month, and that's great. And Keel, a card every 2 months. And Tebow, 2 or 3 a month. So those collections are kind of like buttoned up and done. So now I just have to stay focused on those things I mentioned, and that's going to be it for the next few months. And focusing on the YouTube channel too. That's a big goal. I really want to try to make it, different in a way, but able to bring content. So I've got a stack of cards right over there that I'm ready to wait to film an episode on. I don't think I've seen anything like it on YouTube, so I'm pretty excited to do it.
Yeah, I still have a few. I still have a few episodes to get caught up on.
With poke checking cards, yeah, I've only done a few. I haven't done too many, and I have to admit, I did a mail day video, Dave, and I butchered like 3 names. And now that I've spent the last 2 weeks like learning the names, Shrechnikov, Gorgiev instead of Georgiev. I mean, like I just. A couple of them I just completely butchered, and it's no wonder, I saw some comments. I'm like, all right, sorry, I'll take the time to learn, and I've been working on it.
But I'm from an outsider's perspective and somebody who doesn't have an appreciation for hockey collecting, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
I can appreciate the butchered names though, because to me that adds a little bit of extra fun to it. I mean, let's be realistic. There's going to be some Dave butchers names.
Right.
That's
okay.
I'm sure Carlos has a few times, unlike, Paul maybe, who is like really the hockey connoisseur, and maybe I'll give Carlos a little bit of credit. I know Vinny is really up to snuff on a lot of the names too, but to me that adds a little bit of fun to it, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. I think it's going to be cool if I can, because I know I will hopefully bring over a few people from the Essential Credentials and that will watch and say, oh, I can learn something about hockey. I think I try to approach my videos from that teacher mindset of, okay, can I teach somebody something that they like? That is fascinating. I didn't know that, Tristan Jarry played in the minors for 6 years straight before ever getting a chance to play, and then he got sent back. And then he got brought back up. It's like, dang, that's a lot of resilience right there. Never knew that. Something like that. I try to bring, instead of just like, here are the cards, record a video, be done, I try to bring some kind of, facts or something to learn to the video a little bit. So that's why this one I'm recording after I'm done hanging out with you guys. I'm pretty excited about it because I try to sound educated when I do it. It's just not easy to do sometimes on YouTube because you can get rambling and stuff. So.
Unlike Dave and I. Sound educated?
Dave's just talking about the process of getting the cards for 20 minutes, So, anyway, yeah, not a big deal. But that's his thing, man. I expect that from Dave. Like, I don't expect him to take 3 minutes and just zip through his mail day. That would suck. I want to hear about well, I saw this card and that led me down this hole, and then I bought 7 cards from this seller, and now I got a Messier I never thought I'd have, stuff like that. That's pretty cool. I do enjoy that. Yeah.
And I will say, I don't want to say I track goals. I always have thoughts in my head from an accomplishment perspective, unlike others who, kind of mark them down and kind of, hold themselves to, or try to hold themselves to what they've outlined for collecting goals and things along those lines. As I was chatting with Dave, and I was like, there's a reason why I don't jot them down, because they pigeonhole me into certain thought process.
Right.
And I don't want to say I'm a completionist, but it's one of those in which if I jot something down as something that I want to do or accomplish, I may go to the extreme. And that's what I try and avoid. So it's one of those in which I always have things in my head as far as what I want to look after or go after or complete or things along those lines. I just don't jot them down because I want to be able to be very nimble. So it's like if I want to shift direction, I can do that without sitting there going, oh, crap, that's now going to take away from this. And now I can't do this because I'm so focused. So it the way my mind works, and that's the reason why I don't do it. But there are always goals to accomplish, and I don't jot them down because, like I said, I take them to the extreme. I mean, one prime example of something that I want to at least accomplish, this year is as I'm sorting through my collection and building partial sets, I've added a ton of stuff to my watch list for comps based on trying to complete some of these sets. It's not insert sets, they're base sets. And it's because, I didn't finish them years ago, or 2, I didn't realize I was so close to completing a set that now it's like, all right, let's try and complete it.
Right.
And, some are low tier. Some of them, it's going to be costly for some of the cards. I'll give you some prime examples. 96, 97 Metal Universe.
Nice.
I'm missing a small handful of cards. One of them being the Jordan. Comps are sporadic. It's between $60 and $200. I'm not looking for a graded copy, but I want to make sure it looks decent. I don't want one that looks like crap. I'm also missing the Kobe. So that's another, $60, $80, $90.
Yep.
2003-04 Bazooka. I have no LeBrons. They're $100 a pop. There's 3 of them because there's the Bazooka Joe rookie, and then there's the base rookie, but there's a photo variation. Yeah. So there's 3. Those are $100 a pop. But I'm already starting to look at some of this to see, okay, is this feasible right now, or do I wait and potentially pay a premium later? Because then it'll take away from opportunities in the event that something big comes up for Terrell Davis. Because Terrell Davis is always going to be a focal point.
Well, that's like the overarching number one goal from the get-go. I mean, it's just like if an A-Rod pops up that I need minus like the 3 that I know I'll never get. Dave knows what I'm talking about. The PMG, the 24 karat, and Essential Credential 98, those are pretty much like those have gone way beyond feasible. So, just like if a big brodeur pops up, you put everything aside, Dave, to make sure that you can go after that card. And so, yeah, it makes sense. Just for me, I'm A-Rod or Tebow. Those guys, big card shows up, it's like, okay, man, I put everything else on hold. But the goal that I set out for the end of this year, I'm 2 cards away, and those 2 cards are still en route. I was really hoping they'd get here today, or hopefully by tomorrow when the season starts. Yeah, I think Dave knows what set I'm talking about. I think I've
Young
told
Guns.
you, Steve. Yep, the goalies. I mean, I'm at 199 or 201, and
Wow.
one of them is Stefan Liv, or Live or Leave. I don't know how to say it, but he's one of them. And then the other one is a Brizgalov card that's just taken forever to get here. So it's nice it's nice though to say, you talk about goals, Dave, and then I know Dave's gonna share his. Like, it's nice to have a goal, and when you can put the bow on that, say, okay, this is all done and wrapped up, sweet. It does, that sense of accomplishment is something that I think we need in the hobby too, to make us feel like they're getting somewhere, not just on some perilous journey through the desert picking up scraps. So.
Allegedly, Paul. Allegedly.
Yeah, well, most people think there's penguins and igloos and polar bears all over the place here. So I can certainly sell penguin feathers for money.
Well, that's all right. I traveled to California, San Francisco for work one day, and I got asked where I parked my horse.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Right behind the ranch. Yep.
So.
What about you, Dave? I mean, sorry, Steve. I am just perplexed, because to have that many player PCs, I mean, is there a goal, or are you just like grab stuff alike? That's it.
He's got his 2021 goals out there. Now, I know that's just.
I haven't watched them yet. Yep.
That's just some of them.
Yeah.
Because it's Brodeur focused.
I knew that.
More so, but he does mention JJ, which, it's always a thing. He's always going to pick up Josh Johnson one-on-ones. That's a thing. I mean, that's never going to change, and that's for any player collector, so to speak, if it's reasonable.
That's good.
But it's one of those in which I'm more curious on some of the others, because
same.
I kind of had a feeling where he was going to head this year, just because we've had multiple conversations.
Right.
But that's just part of it.
So yeah, Dave, like how are you how are you gonna approach all the other guys beyond the main dudes? That is a great question. I'm curious about too.
For hockey wise, and again, I've said this I don't know how many years in a row, it never works, and this is for everyone. Don't buy the stuff that you don't really need, but that's at a good price and looks cool. I don't think I can ever stop doing that. That's just me. I have to come to grips in terms that, like the one, I don't know what lot it was. It wasn't a lot, but a bunch from the same seller back in October-ish, maybe.
I remember you getting a couple of those types of mail days, yeah, from the same guy. You just bought a bunch of different stuff, yeah.
And it's just like all the cool stuff that maybe not be at the best price, but it's a price you're comfortable paying. Mm-hmm. And okay, if I'm picking up 2 or 3 Gretzky's, 2 or 3 Lemieux, like 3 or 4 Waz, a couple Brodeurs, right. I'm not picking up Sergei Zubov, like one-on-ones. No disrespect, but again, it's not. If worse comes to worse, I can move some of that stuff.
Right,
I can
of course.
move it. With everybody that, and again, it was Brodeur heavy because, again, that's where the love is, and I think this is one of them. One on that list.
I was going to say I already knew about one of these.
We get to see these live.
Yeah, he prepped those early when we first started, so I knew that there was going to be a live reveal, and I knew that one of them was already marked off the list.
Oh man, is this the card I think it is? Is this going to make me shed some tears, Dave?
No, not yet.
Oh, not that one. Okay.
Or crap your pants.
Ooh, man, awesome, dude, awesome.
And again, this is would be the only version I'd peel, because that peel is horrendous. It seems like a thicker peel on there, and the white lettering is just. So I've got the blue and I've got the red. I just need the certified blue and the certified red. So I've already got the artist proof in the base for that rainbow. And this basically cost me nothing. Gift card from my mom for Christmas, and then eBay bucks. So it brought it down to whatever, $70.
That's awesome, dude. I'm really glad you got that, because You did what I thought you would. You bought the Tebow just so you could have a gold goalie, and now you finally got the Brodeur. That's great. Good deal.
I've got an Owen Nolan. I've got the Alfredson. I think I got one or two more. But again, that's if those guys are like $10-15. And again, it's tough because it says, 22 in the bracket, but the way that TNT lists them, I have to believe there's more than 22 out there.
No, there's I'm thinking 50, maybe more, because there's been like 10 to 12 Tebows since I started collecting Jocelyn Tebow. It's like, wait a second, I shouldn't see any of these. So I don't believe it's 22, not even close. Nope.
So for him, I made like a top 25 list, and I've got to redo it already because there's stuff that I put stuff in. I'm trying to figure out where to put it, and I forgot 2 cards.
Oh no!
And one of them should be super high because it's one that I love. It's that Premier Padman gold medallion.
Oh yeah, of course, dude.
So far.
Got to get one of those. Those are beautiful.
And that one was like $64 it ended, but it had a very, very noticeable scratch on the front and bottom left.
Yeah, not gonna work.
So just like with the Terrell with Steve, if that's like $25-$30 cheaper, I'll consider it. I'll be like, okay, $30. That's a placeholder I can live with.
Yep.
But at $64, and that was the star exposure. There was the limited.
Oh yeah.
But there was like a panini chip and like a bent corner, a ding corner, and I'm like, I can't. Even at 25, and that was I think like a $60 card too.
Right.
Like, I can't. It just, for me, it's very eye-centric focused. If there is something wrong with the card, I notice it, and that's why refractor lines get me so quickly because again. It's faint on the Steve had told me that one of Terrell when he had gotten it in like one of our chats. And it was just, I'm like, you can't notice it or you don't notice unless you tilt that light just right. There's some that are down the side that, I mean, it's like a new card should be right where it's at, not the refractor. I mean, the end of the card should be there.
Dude, I'm with you. I got a Tuca Young Guns, and the card wasn't this way in the picture, but he sent it in a card saver with a top loader, and he put the piece of packing tape or painting tape at the top. It's such a bad idea because it slides up, comes out of the penny sleeve, and gets stuck right in the tape. And then, of course, me thinking that it's not touching the tape, just go whoosh right off there, and there's just like the tiniest little piece that came off, and it just like aggravates me so much that card has that on there, and I see it right away. So I hear you, dude. If I notice that, then everybody, you're gonna notice. You guys are gonna notice the bigger things. It's just you have to approach it. I had a guy on eBay. You guys will like this, Steve and Dave, and he ended up being a nice guy. But I bought an Aho Young Guns canvas in the bottom right corner because the way he took the picture, the light was hitting it. It looked like there was a little white chip on the bottom right corner, which is like, I just can't buy it. I can't be okay with that. So I asked the guy, I go, hey, can I see a close-up of that? Because I care. He goes, well, what do you think this is? I mean, if you want a perfect card, then buy a graded version. I'm like, wait a second. Hold on. I'm just asking. Like, and then he put it up, and he kind of gave me grief. And I was like, dude, you have to know you're going to get these questions now. I'm not looking to gem this card. I want a card in my collection that looks nice. So be ready for these questions. And he felt bad and refunded my shipping and all this stuff. But still, you have to understand that as collectors, guys like us that have been around for a while, that stuff matters, So I just had to tell that story because I found it to be so silly. Like, what are you expecting from me? Like, being okay with that? And it ended up being fine, but still,
Well, and from a condition-sensitive perspective, for any like subset, parallel, insert, that type of situation, those type of things have to be taken into consideration. But for something that I would still consider modern,
right?
Absolutely, I would. If I were the seller, I would expect questions like that. It's the difference is though it seems because there's a lot more visibility in the sports card collecting market these days that a lot of the casual sellers, or even maybe they own a shop and they are a power seller type situation, they're not used to getting the level of inquiries of what would be received now,
Right.
because everybody's hoping to buy low, so low being raw,
Yep.
to turn it around, get it graded as a gem copy, and get 10 or 15 times that initial investment. So,
Yeah, he thought I was trying to do that, but I was trying to tell him, no, man, I might do that, but I like this player, and your card is the one that I want. It's the only canvas that I can find at a reasonable price. So, yeah, he ended up being, like I said, I think he realized after I kind of approached him, like, look, this is something you're going to get. These are modern cards. People are going to ask these questions. You have to be able to be expecting them, and you guys understand that. But he like you said, he's probably old. He said, I've been around here a long time. Like, I know cards in good condition. Like, well, yeah, but that's how people are now, man. People are going to ask. You have to be ready for that.
yeah.
Right.
I've been in the hobby a long time too, and if there's, it's no different. You bringing up the stuff on the gold. I posed the question. The guy was quick to respond. He's like, no, actually, that picture is without the top of the mag. And I was like, oh.
Which he should put in the description. I mean, something like that needs to be mentioned, man, because if you buy that with the assumption it's on the mag, because it looks like it's on the mag, the way that it's so unnatural looking, and you get that card, you are just like deflated. You are absolutely deflated, and I've had it happen. So Dave's had it happen too. You're all excited, you take it out, you're like, crap.
Well, yeah, one of his primary colors.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure it was one of the primary colors, gold die cut, that was like peeling from the card.
Mm-hmm.
And
Number 25.
and if somebody, it's one of those, if it was sitting in a penny sleeve and a top loader and you're a consignment person and you're not actually pulling stuff out and observing and, checking for things like that, you just post it up with the normal pictures.
Right.
You would never know. But as a seller, it's one of those in which if you're going to post something, then you're going to give it some sort of qualifiers, so to speak, whether it be near mint to mint or mint, whatever qualifier you want to associate it, and even put the disclaimer in there, I'm not a professional grader, but whatever. That's a seller's responsibility to visually observe and look at their stuff before they post it.
Absolutely.
Because, if that were me in that situation, I'd have been cussing up and down one side and out, up the other, and, sending a not so pleasant message to the seller and being like, WTF. I just, this is unacceptable. I'm sitting there, re-looking at the listing, trying to look for imperfections, and yet there's nothing listed. You're stating it's this. This is not what you stated is.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sure, man.
So,
well, anyway, sorry, Dave. I just had to bring that up because I felt like it was relevant. But before, I've got about 15, 20 left. I've got to see the other box. Because if it's the card I think it is, that would be two of my good friends that are collectors that have got that parallel. And that is my, mountaintop.
Not yet.
Okay, that's not yet. Okay.
One of the reasons when I made the the for sale video last night, I don't know if you've seen that yet. I showed my stacks of what I'm trying to move, and I want to put funds towards that. I could pay out of pocket, but I don't want to pigeonhole myself if something else comes up.
Have you got it at least wrapped up like it's going to go to you, or do you have to? Does that not going to happen until the money comes out of your account?
I really would like to get it to when the money comes, so I'd hope within the next 10 days to somehow.
Okay. I hope he honors that, man, because I can't think of anybody else that I'd rather have that
Well,
card
after
go to.
you said discussing and sending messages to that seller with the Aho canvas, it's like that's what I did with this dude. I said, hey, your price is a bit off. I don't want to. I know if I showed you the message, I know it showed Steve.
You showed us. Yep.
So I mean, I went and I laid it out probably as nicely as I could, where you think you hear me in any other video, you're like, you can't do that. It's like 2 different people. But I just said, hey, this is the Gretzky sold for this. That's what I'm looking at as sort of like the benchmark of this card. Again, it's your card. You sell whatever you want. I mean, we can work something out if you're willing to wriggle a little bit. And I'm more than willing to pay up from what I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still in my range, but I mean, that's the top end. But at the same time, I love the card. So.
Well, that's the thing, man. I mean, before you show that next card, I have had more success expressing to some of those sellers, you know, like, I'm not sure about this offer. I'm like, look, this card's going into a collection where it's not coming in to be resold. It's coming in to be appreciated and showed off to my friends and to fellow collectors and to be appreciated and talked about. You know, why do I have this card? And I landed at a really nice Synergy Aho out of 20, and the guy was like, I wasn't sure about that price, but then you talked to me, and I was like, oh, absolutely, this guy will love this card, and that has been a huge bright spot for me because I have no face. Steve has no face. You don't when you message on eBay. It could be anybody. But when you express, like, your true feelings for a card, sounds super lame, but it's true. Like, just how much it'll mean to you, you know, like with Steve with a TD card, I mean, if I'm a seller and I got a Terrell Davis that I just found in a box, like, oh, this is a nice card. And Steve's like, dude, I've been looking for this thing for 10 years. Here's my YouTube channel. I talk about how much I want it. I'm like, well, this is done. This is the guy that's going to get it, you know. And that is something I recommend to anybody that listens to this. Go do that. You know, don't make up some sob BS story that's not true, but speak from here about if that T-Boy ever pops up, dude, I'm telling you what, I am going to be all over that thing. And that's why I have the Atomic, you know, Pop's Collection, who I interviewed. He's like, dude, I could tell you wanted this card, that you would love it. And I'm like, you're right. So I'm glad that I know both of you guys are like that. And it's sure, it's nice when on eBay when that's recognized, you know, and you end up getting the cards because of that. Not just because of the price. That's always part of it. But
yeah.
Well, that's how I ended up landing my Flawless 101. So the first year of Flawless, I engaged the seller early on and was like, hey, any chance we can work out a deal type situation? And he's like, no, I'm going to let this one run. And I was like, no, I completely understand. It's brand new product. I get it. Just know I'd really appreciate it. I've been a huge TD collector for, you know, X number of years at that point in time. You know, I would really love to be able to add this to my collection type situation, and I lost. But yet, second chance offer.
Wow,
and it worked in my favor. So
that's cool. That is awesome, dude. Yeah, I'll have to go find it. I'm sure you have a video with that card in it, so I'll have to go back.
Oh yeah.
That's
I think it's called Proclamations of Cardboard Perfection, I think is the title.
Ooh, man, that's
and
a profound name. Look at that.
The only reason why I remember it is because Michael, this film not yet rated, is the one who actually gave me the suggestion for the title. Because I was like, I need something catchy on this one because this is big because it was the first year of Flawless.
Yeah, I remember that. That was crazy.
And he's the one who came up with the title, and that's the reason why I remember it. It's but those are the stories that always stick in your head. Those fond type situations and stories and conversations.
I'm loving this with Paul right here. He's sounding like one of my kids. Like, wait. You've been telling me to do this for how long? And now I finally listen and I realize my iPad can do what? I can take screenshots with a button? Like, yeah, I've been saying that for like a month. Oh, okay. Anyway, so Dave, I got to see this other card, dude. I actually don't think I know what this is, to be honest with you.
This one, I'd been alerted. I'd won it, and I put a max bid of, I think, 140 in on it. And I won it for 46 bucks. So it's not. I wish it was the card that we both want of our player that is going to cost us a lot. But at the same time, when it comes in, that's probably going to be just a 10-minute video of like the turnstile, just slightly turning. That's all you're going to get. And I might talk a few minutes, and then it's going to be 8 minutes of the thing turning.
All right.
But I've seen it. I think Joey Burkett 8 had messaged me Saturday morning, the week before last week, saying, "Hey, this is up." And I hadn't checked in a couple days, so I'm like, okay, I'll throw the bid in now. And then see where it goes and then bid high later. So I won it. And then, like, instantly on Facebook in the 101 group, this guy takes a screenshot, puts it up on there, like, man, does anybody know who won this? And he calls up my YouTube, or not my YouTube, my eBay name.
Yeah.
So that's what I needed for my master set of this particular brand. And I'm just like, okay. And then it's like the sob story. It's like, oh, I was cooking in the kitchen and I got away from it. I'm like, no, you work around it. If there's a grail or something you really want, you work around everything in your power. When I hear excuses, I laugh because that's on you, not me.
I've done it. I've literally been cooking and I lost an A-Rod Centurion refractor for $50. I will never let that go. But it was my fault. Like, good for you for winning it, man. Like, so yeah, you're right. When a card comes up like that, put on the freaking war paint and get after it. And good luck. You know?
That's the thing. And I'm like, okay. And so then like the comments you see, I think Joey was in there later on, but there's a couple of other guys on here. I think Victor Negron was posting. I think I know who won them. I doubt it's going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not leaving.
And then I think the guy's like, oh well, I'd pay $100 for it. And like, that's an insult to me then, because I would have paid $140 for it, and I probably would have paid more because, again, I'm stupid with my player PCs that I really want a card.
You know what? And I'll say it again. You were right about a certain Tebow card. I still don't agree with how much it sold for, but I screwed the pooch on that one. I should have found something else to sell to make that happen, just to get the card. But you know, that's how you learn your lessons. So, as a '90s fan, can I have a tiny hint on what set, or at least something that I can like start thinking about what card this might be? Do I have one of Tebow?
This is a 2014.
Oh, then no, obviously not.
But one of my 8 million player PCs.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's not one I show often, and I think I posted in that group about the stuff because I wanted to sort of needle the guy, because I'm like, this isn't just me buying a card to buy a card. This is going in a collection where it's going to stay.
Is this a hockey card or a different sport?
Football. So again, it's rare that we actually get back to, or I get back to
Steve,
football.
man.
But again, when you see it, you'll know it's not.
I don't even know this one.
Give
He
Steve
didn't.
a hint.
He didn't spoil this
Steve,
one.
I want to see if Steve,
No.
because I do this with Tyler all the time. You don't want to hint, you just want to see it? All right.
You didn't spoil this one.
Ooh.
Superfractor.
And again, graded. I don't give a shit about that. But
I don't get why people would do that with Super. Who is that?
Jace Amaro.
Jace Amaro.
No, okay. Can I hear why? Why Jason Morrow?
I don't know if it will show up on the top. But I love Texas Tech. I love their offense from Sonny Cumbie, Cliff Kingsbury, B.J. Simmons. Crabtree was down there. Russ Riker. They had legit video game numbers, passing wise.
Mm-hmm.
And that anytime Troy Edwards and Tim Rattay for Louisiana Tech in the late 90s when they got drafted in 2000, or 99 for Edwards, 2000 for Rattay. I remember the first time and only time I watched them in college, I think it was 98. They played at Nebraska, and I was so excited because I'm like, I get to see my two guys play, because you read all about these people, but then you didn't have all these mediums to watch it. So watching them, I mean, they got smoked, but they still, Rattay, I don't even know how many yards he had, but I know Edwards had a ton too. Seeing that, and it's like video game numbers always appealed to me, even if it didn't matter if the player had a projectable career. And again, I thought he'd do something with the Jets, because again, big tight end, passing offense, maybe not a blocking guy, so he's not like a three-star type tight end, but he can run routes, he can catch, he's moderately fast, so he's not a lumbering guy down the field. You thought he'd do decent, his stuff was cheap. I started going in, because again, I had done Agnew, I'd gotten in, okay, there's still maybe a chance for him. I could pick stuff up, and that's where my collecting of players, football, baseball-wise, waned. I'm like, I'm striking out a lot. And I'm building a great collection, but I'm striking out And again, not that it should ever be about money, but if I think, man, if I could sell those Agnews or go back, take all the money I put into them, what could I have that is more tangible for me now and down the road? Because again, when I'm dead, if I'm in a nursing home and I can't tell you what 2 or the letter Q is, again, you're going to need money for something. So are you going to sell Michael Agnew, or are you going to sell like a Ty Cobb or Clemente, what you could have got 8-10 years ago for about a third of what you could get now?
Right.
So it's always collect what you like, but always be cautious about collecting what you like. Because if you go like me, you're going to have all these great collections of people that are just shit.
Sorry, that's just funny how he said that.
No, I mean, I put up all those pictures on Facebook. I'm sure I'll do it on Instagram too. But just having the guy sit there and say, "Well, I'd pay $100. I'd pay $100." Message me, "Well, what do you want for this, bud?" Don't pal and bud in private messages or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not your bud. I'm not your pal. This isn't 1940. I mean, if you see my name up there, call me by my name.
Right.
I'm not faceless like on Sports Card Live, the Facebook user without a profile. If you see my name, so when I hear that, it's just, I don't even respond. And there's another guy that's like, "Oh, I'm trying to go for the master set of I think it was like 2014 score, the Gem Master, the 101. I've got a Amaro out of that too." And he's like, "Oh, you don't reply to my messages." I'm like, "The card's not for sale unless you're offering like $150.
Right.
The card's not for sale. It's not worth that. Like you offering $20 to $30,
$100 million.
$100 billion. Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, everything's for sale at the right price. Somebody comes on and says, "I'll give you $1 million for all your A-Rods." Okay, here you go. Yeah. Although that would probably still make me cry. But I do have to mention I have one more collecting goal this year, and that's to somehow convince Dave that he needs a Ryan Smith McFarlane more than he needs anything else in this collection.
Eventually that will come to
No, I'm just teasing. I'm just going to send it to you, man. And then if you end up sending me something for it, fine. Because it literally is taking up room on my shelf. I'm like, there's only one guy that needs this. Not me.
When I was looking through my multiple boxes of cards, I found one that will be better suited in your collection for sure.
Perfect. We should just trade it then. Because I will say, the first time I ever spoke with Dave was because he sold me an A-Rod. So, like, believe it or not. And here we are talking about hockey and football. Like, holy smokes, dude. You know, that you did remind me of something, though, both of you guys, because you're talking about football. If there was a football player, there's two, like, that I would do what Dave is doing and collect a guy that really wasn't much, but he was a hell of a college player. These two guys. Eric Crouch, first college football player I ever noticed that was a really good athlete. I'm like, Jiminy, who is this guy? He plays quarterback and he runs 90-yard touchdowns. This is a guy I should pay attention to. And then, like Texas Tech, I watched the Rose Bowl when Russell Wilson played against the Oregon Ducks, and I watched DeAnthony Thomas take a handoff so effortlessly, I said it right, down the field faster than anybody. Like, he slowed down, and he was still going faster than all the DBs. I'm like, who is that? And if I ever went back to collect football, I would chase those two guys. So if anybody has an Eric Crouch card, hit me up. I still don't own one, and I would love it because he captivated me when I was in high school, and he just like did an option play, fake handoff, 90 yards down the field. I was just like, that's a quarterback doing that.
Is that Nebraska?
Yep. And then they lost in the championship. They got destroyed. But
go look up Tommy Frazier.
Tommy Frazier. Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Old school running back.
Quarterback for Nebraska.
Was he the quarterback? I thought he was a running back, but I know the name.
He was Crouch before Crouch was Crouch. And he didn't play in the next level. I think there's like blood clot issues or something.
Oh, bummer.
Because I've only been able to pick up, and I haven't looked a lot, but I made sure, I think it was like a year or two ago, in some of that press pass stuff. He's got like an Orange Bowl auto or whatever.
Okay.
I made sure that's when I had my starter jacket, the old school, with the flap in the front and the huge logo of Nebraska in the back. Oh, that that was pimpin' days. That was
Pimpin'
was
days.
oh, those were. It was so much fun because again, like unlike now where you can watch a Ball State Central Michigan game easily. 25 years ago, you couldn't.
No.
You wouldn't even. You'd see it. CNN used to have like the Sports Tonight, and at the end of the broadcast, they just scroll all the game scores of like that stuff, either be NCAA football or basketball. So you'd see it in there and be like, okay, I got to write all these scores down, write that. Today you can do all that. So back then, you were pretty much like, man, I gotta like Ken Dorsey, I gotta like Eric Couch, I gotta like Charlie Ward or Tommy Fraser or Gino Toretta, whoever it was. You were basically following all these major teams because that's NBC, ABC, CBS, ESPN, and that's all they put on. It wasn't like, oh, here's Bracket Busters Week, here's Creighton when they're in like the Mid-Continent or whatever they were in, against like Cleveland State or Murray State with John Morant against Utah Valley State or something. It's like, no, you're playing with people. You're playing Kentucky Louisville. You're playing Tennessee, Kentucky. You're playing Alabama, Auburn. That's what you're going to watch because guess what? That's what people care about.
Yeah.
So that's why you like to watch out the teams from then, or you hear people like, I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. Well, you're Notre Dame because they've been on NBC forever, and they have visibility. Nobody's like, man, I'm a huge like Eastern Michigan fan. I love Earl Boykin and Derek Dial back in like the early
Earl Boykin.
I'm like, nobody's saying. You might like Texas Tech. You might like that because of the offense, but then they went away from it. You might like Boone Jones out in Hawaii with like Timmy Chang.
And, gosh, he was so good.
And Cole Brennan.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy watching those two guys.
It's like those two. It's like, man, those guys are just the video game numbers. I wanted to collect him, but I'm like, I know Timmy Chang's not going to do anything.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's fun to do that and pick up these player PCs that you watch these guys in college or you follow them pretty closely and like, oh, it depends on where the market goes once they quote unquote graduate to the pros. But you have to realize most of these guys, especially anybody I'm collecting, doesn't pan out. Josh McCown, I could have sold some of that stuff 4 or 5 years ago when he had that run with the Bears.
Right.
And again, I mean, that's when stuff popped up. So I'm like, well, I'd rather pick more up because I'm 2 4-row boxes into his collection. I should continue to pick it up. So it's always be wary, but if you're enjoying it in the moment, and then you can live with the heartache of 10 years down the road, Michael Agnew being an absolute pile of shit, then do it. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's always tread lightly. Don't jump in or dive into the frozen lake because it's not going to feel good in the end.
As a Libra, it's all about balance, man. You got to find a balance between spending a lot on the guys that are going to be worth something later, like the young gun stuff, and also spending $20 on an Eric Crouch autograph because you loved watching him play when you were a kid. You know, like there's balance to be had for sure in those side PCs. And I'm like Steve too. I think Steve said it best. When I decide I'm going to collect a player like Tyler Glass now, I freaking own a Superfractor for crying out loud. And at first it started with a Topps Independence Day parallel. Like it really wasn't going to be much. And then I watched him pitch and he like imprinted on me and I'm like, oh crap, here we go. And so I'm going to have to be careful when I watch Carolina's first game on Thursday. And if Aho has like a hat trick or something, I'm going to just be like beside myself. Like, okay, how do I resist? Like, you know, so... Yeah, I hear you, man. But that's the joy of collecting, man. That's the joy of collecting.
And finding ways to keep it fresh. Even if you stay focused to one player. Because it's going back to what I said about, goals. I mean, as a player collector, you can still pigeonhole yourself and then it no longer becomes rewarding or enjoyable if you're not careful. So, and that's why, my focus has shifted to the inserts parallels of the 90s. Although I should have done it years ago,
We could all say that, Steve. We could all say that, dude.
And you're right, and I'm not discounting that by any stretch of the imagination either.
Right.
But for the longest time, I was so hyper focused on the autos and the patches as the new products and stuff came out, and it's like I neglected a very substantial key component of a player collection who played in the 90s, to where certain things could have been picked up for half or a third of what stuff is potentially going for now. And it's still, we've had an episode about losing out on a big card or something along those lines, or the regret factor. I don't regret things, but at the same time I do, because that ship has sailed. And it's no different. Carlos has even alluded to it when he was looking at the LeBron MVP rookie. Mm-hmm. He does regret the fact that, well, crap, he should have pulled the trigger when he did, although it wasn't something that he was strictly looking to keep type situation, but he missed out on an opportunity to be able to fund something else because of the substantial influx. So as a collector, even as an investor for that matter, I mean, the regrets are going to be there regardless.
I'm going to say this, like, kind of in closing for me. I listened to Dave's advice. When I first started collecting Tebow, you kind of said it without saying it, but you said, watch out for those in the game used, like it's more modernish Tebow stuff. There's a lot of it, so be really careful. So I kind of steered away, other than that awesome complete package. You're like, buy that card right now. So, but you said stay away from the more modern stuff, and that made me run and grab all of his 90s stuff. I mean, I'm not bragging or anything, but because of that advice, I really focused on that, especially because I grew up collecting the 90s hockey. And then this Tebow collector popped up on Instagram. I mean, he's a super nice guy, but he's got like everything. All the 90s stuff, all of his like game-used actual equipment, jerseys, pictures. I mean, he's way beyond where I am. But he kind of started doing the 90s stuff about 3-4 months ago. And thankfully, I haven't had to battle him on hardly any of that stuff because I grabbed it early. So heed the advice that all of us are saying, man. Like, if you want to do 90s inserts, you better start doing it now, because in 3-4 years, if its trend continues, they are going to be unobtainable.
Yep.
For any, I hate the word normal, but anybody with a regular income like us, people, the living, working American with 2 kids at home and can afford a few cards. And 90s inserts are going to be far gone by then, man. No matter what the sport is, so do it now. Modern stuff will always be there, man. The modern stuff will always be there, and that's something that I think you guys have said a couple of times. Great advice, Steve. I can go grab a modern card of glass now, almost any time I want. If I'm wanting a card, a parallel that's 25, 50, 100, they're going to show up a lot. But a Jocelyn Tebow Z Gold probably won't show up again for a while. And by the time it does, I'm going to have to really get crazy on it. So there you go. It's a great piece of advice, for sure.
Yeah, the goals, and that's why when I say my goals, it's always I would like to, not I want to or I need to. I would like to acquire 3 of these Broder top 10 cards.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
I'm going to have to pay? Yes, I already, in my mind, that's already ingrained. There's not at this point now, there won't be a shocking number unless something goes up like tenfold of where it's at now.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, I need to get these. Well, no. I would like to. If I don't, okay, it sucks. But at the same time, like the JJ 101s, I wanted 10. I got 7 or 8. Okay, that's 80% of a goal of 1 card every time. So that's why I like doing it, because then you can go back, look, and sort of see, okay, where was I at in January?
Right.
Where am I at in December? So, Steve, I know it's more streamlined. You've gotten more Terrell Davis. That's what it's going to be now. sort of opening the door a little bit with the sets. You
Yeah.
know, with someone like me, it was nothing in my goal video for last year said anything about hockey. Not a word, I bet. I watched it, but I don't remember saying hockey at all. Even like the autos, I think. I might have had either a Gretzky or a Lemieux, and that was it that I wanted to pick up.
Right.
And other than that, there was no hockey. And what was pretty much the end of February on, mainly, I'd say 90% was hockey.
Yep.
So again, I didn't go by the what I had set out to do, but I also found insane enjoyment, met a bunch of cool people, became closer with a bunch of people that I'd watch like your videos, I watched them. I'd comment once in a while, but it wasn't like we talked at all up
Right.
until like the end of March.
The A-Rod sale, man, that's what did it. And then you freaking post hockey videos like crazy, and here we go. Like, I'm off and running, Jocelyn Tebow. Yep.
But that was the thing. It was, you can say, well, this goal wasn't reached, that goal wasn't reached, but all these other goals that I didn't have that you think about. That's why most of my goals this year were just like continuing the friendship stuff.
Right.
That's something that's obtainable. I mean, you just have to be yourself. People don't like you. You can weed those folks off to the side and build the friendships with everyone else. So that's why I like making the goal video.
You know what? I might motivate you guys to try something this year. And I haven't done a goal video, but I have an idea, and I'm curious what you think before I go here, is that it might be interesting to, just because of how quickly the landscape of the hobby is changing, price-wise, and just so many new products and interests, doing like a summer halfway point goal check-in type thing, like, okay, here's where I started, like, this is a new goal, or I'm progressing well with these goals. You know, I think those kinds of things are interesting to see with your friends, because okay, are you staying focused? Are you helping motivate each other? Like, hey, you know, don't get off the sets bandwagon. Don't get off collecting your Josh Johnson 1-on-1s because they're worth nothing to most people. like stick with it. You know, I think that could be kind of fun to look at halfway through. Is like, okay, did I go overboard with Sebastian Aho, or did I stay and just grab a card here and there that looked nice? And so yeah, it'd be interesting to hear you guys do something like that. And see, like, where are you halfway through the year? Because if the National does happen, man, people are going to get hyped like crazy for collecting. I mean, beyond where you're at now. It's easy to think. So.
Well, if I did a halfway check-in point, I wouldn't have accomplished anything. At least what I'm currently watching from a set fill perspective, because that's just going to take away from the opportunity in the event that, you know, something pops up that's big of Terrell Davis that I really want to go for.
In your video too, you could just be like, well, I had these goals, but guess what? This popped, that popped, and this popped. I was able to get all three, which are my goal. It won't make the whole percentage of goals bigger, but the TD collection, we'll be doing cartwheels near the 4-row boxes, because again, you got those main cards that you've been after. The sets might be like, hey, what about us over here? Come on, man.
Well, and that's that's valid, and you know, it's just it's one of those in which that's why I try to be a lot more broader in my approach to a certain degree, because, you know, like I said, I'm only looking at some of those sets that I know I have gaps. And, you know, I'm not going to use iconic type situation, but, you know, Flair Metal is just, it's gone on the up and up as far as just, you know, base cards and everything else, not just the inserts, not just PMGs, just the cards in general. You know, it's a nostalgia set, so to speak. And, you know, although those are some of the ones that I've been looking at, and, you know, Bazooka, for instance, and that's just because it's LeBron's rookie year. I'm trying to get an idea of what to look towards Whether or not I even touch those this year, it's hard to know for sure. I've got plenty of other ones in which I have gaps to fill that would be fulfilling to complete sets that are not going to cost an arm and a leg though either. You know, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 bucks, you know, in that type range. And whether it be certain base sets or even some of the insert sets that, you know, I started putting in binders and things along those lines. And I've at least tried to change my focus to a certain degree. Although Terrell Davis, I still do multiple searches. I don't do near the number of searches that I have in the past because I've noticed a slowing trend as far as some of the stuff that gets listed these days, which is good and bad because, you know, it's bad because I can't add anything to the collection, but it's good because then I can start taking the opportunities and looking at some of the other things that I want to accomplish. You know, I even started looking at some of the list of sets that I had on my list years ago. I no longer have the list, but I still remember them. So I've started even watching some of those just to kind of see. It's like, okay, are they still right around the same as what they were then, or has there been a substantial, you know, uptick and things along those lines? Of course, 76 has definitely seen a slight increase. Like I said, I'm not looking for, you know, a graded set 9 or higher type situation, or even an 8 or higher. But I do want something better than, you know, an excellent condition set from a patent perspective. And that's just because of who it is.
Well, I will say this in closing for me. Don't forget, I know you guys don't do this because you always take a look, but don't forget to appreciate what you already have. Holy smokes. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in just the hype of the hobby being at the peak of its interest ever, I think, in my opinion. I don't know if that can be, I'm sure that can be debated, but don't forget to go through and just like take a box out, set the box there on your desk, and just like go through it. Oh man, that card's awesome. Haven't looked at that in a while. Haven't looked at this in a while. Man, I remember how hard it was to find this card. Like, we cannot forget to remember to do that because as awesome as it is about having the goals of picking these certain cards up, man, I think a goal is also find ways to continue to appreciate what you already have in front of you or that you have in your house, you know, because we store our cards in boxes so they don't get to be on display all the time. And I think it's super important to look at cards and say, oh man, you know, like you pull out the Carey Price and you're like, oh dude, I remember talking to this guy and I remember finding him on Instagram and I remember the me paying for it and it didn't go through for a week and he still sent it to me before the payment cleared. It's like stuff like and then that he pulled it from a pack, one pack, like going through and looking at cards and remembering to remember some of the stories. I mean, I know you guys both have ridiculous collections already. So, see? Look at that guy. I love the slow reveal, dude. That was a very Nate thing to do right there. That was perfect. He always does that when he's been on the podcast. He's like, all right. But yeah, I think that for closing, that's one goal that I didn't mention is I want to make sure that I am not losing the appreciation of the cards that I do love in my collection. Because yeah, it's great to add stuff, but man, there's some sweet crap in those boxes back there. And I sure love them. So.
Yeah, I don't appreciate mine enough, but at the same time, me actually going through the other aspect of the collected or the collection that I've acquired over the years, I have appreciated going through some of those and realizing, oh crap, I didn't realize I had this. Oh, geez, you know, type situation, or you know. Kicking yourself in the butt though too. Well, why didn't you end up putting this set together when you opened, you know, 4 boxes in 97? Why did you just pull out the rookies? Why didn't you actually, you know, put the set together? Right. So that's lately where the appreciation has come into play.
Good.
You know, me doing the PC showcase stuff also has helped with a lot of the appreciation of the Terrell Davis collection just because of, you know, the overall size. But, you know, it's trying to get through that and finish it to where I can not just see the varying years up to the point of when I actually start doing the patches and the autographs, because there was a time in which that was the focus, and I have a lot of nice stuff. A lot.
Well, yeah, that's great. I think it would be awesome, to do. I think those box rummage videos. I mean, I've only done one on my other channel. I think those are a lot of fun to do because you have the viewers can have that experience of you seeing this card for the first time in like 3-4 months, and then also being like, hey, that's pretty sweet. I remember when I got mine, and it, I pulled it in a pack, yada yada yada. I think those things are a lot of fun to do too. But hey, I want to say thanks to both of you guys for letting me come on here and BS and chit chat for a while. I sure enjoyed it. I even got to talk football, which was cool. Never expected that. And I'm super pumped to watch my Penguins tomorrow. It's going to be sweet to have hockey back on the docket and be following it as heavily as I do baseball and basketball. And we won't talk about football because the Seahawks freaking blew it, and that's that. So that's, time to focus on hockey.
They at least made it.
Yeah, well, I'd rather them not made it because there was no point about losing to a team with a quarterback with a broken hand and yeah. Russell needs to stop doing podcasts and things with Ciara as much and focus on freaking football. But what do I know? He's a freaking beast. So, anyways, hey, have a great night, guys. Hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast. It was nice being here, and I look forward to being on the next one. Thank you.
No, absolutely, Matt. Thanks for joining. You're always welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much. Good night, guys.
Later.
Good night. See, in him leaving, we're starting to, rethink things. Coming up on 3 hours, potential good segue into maybe wrapping up the episode. So you and I can talk afterwards since we haven't been able to sync up in the last few days.
The one thing I'd say to his, like the making the mid-year goal, I'd say, and again, this is for people who are more visual and can actually make these lists. Like, let's say you have a top 10, like cards in your collection right now of X player. If you did top 10, if I did a top 10 of everything, I couldn't do it. Let's just say if I did Brodeur and Johnson, or people that I pick up with great regularity. Then mid-year, hey, here's what I picked up so far for the goals video. Make a separate video. Here's how they sort of slot into the collection if they make that top 10. And preface that in the like mid-year goal. Well, I'm going to be making another video. These two cards will crack the top 10, but I don't know exactly where they'll go. Again, not to just draw it out with like a cliffhanger, but you have to visualize the stuff. You have to, again, it seems petty to like just look at stuff and be like, well, I like that one more than that. Well, no, it depends a lot on the day. Sometimes you're feeling like the acetate die cut or something. Like, man, I like the way that one's shining in the light if it's an atomic refractor or whatever. But then like an essential credentials is there, and you're like, ooh, for whatever reason today that card really is speaking to me. So, or like a mirror red that pops in the light. So that would be another. And again, that don't have to be like a 30-minute video because people already know. You could go over maybe a couple of the new ones and be like, well, this is why I picked this up, but refer people back to a previous video. Then maybe at the end of the year, when you're doing the recap, touch a little more on like, well, hey, this is why these cards are in. Just A, you're getting more videos out there, more content, and B, you're continuously updating the collection and letting people know. Again, this is why I collect it. So if somebody stumbles across like Terrell Davis top 10 and you have like 4 of the top 15 videos in there, it's like, oh, well, shit, this guy must really like Terrell Davis. And I don't know, just a thought, just thinking out loud.
Oh, and it's valid. It puts a different spin on things. Absolutely. And, not to kind of shift to a certain degree, that's one of the, I have to say, one of the main reasons why I'm glad I haven't been asked to be on JT's Super Collector episodes is because, it's the Mount Rushmore. Well, that depends on the day.
Mm-hmm.
It really would depend on the day on what I would put on my Mount Rushmore as far as my Terrell Davis collection. there's one card that would always be on it. And Dave, you may or may not know which one I'm talking about. It's not from a manufacturer. It was a gift. But think long and hard. Go way back when. A gift from a certain YouTuber who was popped in on the live chat a few times on what I'm referring to. That would be the only card in my collection that would always be in my top 4.
Wouldn't be from Chris? I'm trying to remember what he sent you. That's the thing.
It's my Terrell Davis that he drew.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. That is the only one.
Which I still say that his artistic ability, even though he's super humble about it,
it's fantastic.
If you did one or two of the ones for sevens, Michael, that Matt Ryan piece, I think for his birthday or whatever, I'm like, this shit, Christ, I can't even draw a stick figure, and this is stuff you see in a museum.
Yeah, I mean, I still have both the drawings hung up on my wall, and it's the card was the first, and it by far it's always going to be in my top 4. It's probably my top 1, to be brutally honest, and it's because of the friendship, the appreciation, and and eventually those people who are new, to me from a YouTube perspective will see it, because it actually sits in with my jerseys, autos, and patches. That's where it stays. Because there's 2 boxes. If for any reason there's a fire in the house, there's 2 boxes that go out that will go. And that's the reason why it's in there. And that's not to take away from the 3 boxes that hold, 95 through the current. Not saying that there's not stuff in there that's worth a damn. Because, I mean, I have a ton of one-on-ones, but it means that much. So,
that's it. The time he takes for those drawings, it isn't just like done in a week. I mean, it's months, because he's a perfectionist. We know that about him. For anybody that's watching, it's Christopher 2024.
Yep. Get out of the toilet.
POPHER 2024. Even if I think he's still got his stuff up, I don't know. But if you look, just type in his name, and I think AirFox 77. I don't know if he's changed his YouTube name to Tattoo Sevens.
I think he changed his YouTube name too. I think it now shows up as Tattoo Sevens, I think.
So if you get under that, I think it's like a reveal on his birthday or something. And I mean, I know Michael had the inkling possibly of something going on, but at the same time, I don't think he had the scope of what the picture was going to look like, or a canvas, I think it was. Whatever it was, framed or canvas or otherwise, it was, and it's still one of the, I mean, again, people are polarizing figures to other people. Not everybody likes everyone. To see that, though, I mean, a lot of people that didn't even care for him, it's like, that's fucking cool. That's
no, absolutely. I mean, I'm an emotional guy. I'm not scared to admit it. I mean, I was raised by women, so I mean, I'm not scared to show my emotional side by any stretch of the imagination. But for when I got my first picture from him for Christmas, I mean, between the note and the actual picture itself, I mean, I had some tears. I mean, it was an emotional experience because that's personal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to take away from, people sending cards to add to people's collections because they paid attention and things along those lines, because that could be emotional too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just one of those things that the true meaning of some of those gifts is really what still sticks to me in my mind consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's times in which I know you don't do it for yourself, because you always say you hate yourself, hate listening to yourself talk. But there are times in which I'll go back and watch certain videos because I remember those situations.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And see, I like, and it sounds horrible because I don't like listening to myself. I do not sound, when I'm talking, like I sound on a recording or whatever. But I do like listening or watching when I've sent out like care packages that have really knocked people's socks off. I just like seeing that reaction because again, the painting is like the next level. Yeah, you listen to people when they want for cards, or you try to do a good job getting stuff that they really want, but maybe aren't. It's like if you collected all the Broncos, I mean, you still do like the autographs. Like if I had somebody that was like if I had a Darren Drozdov '93 Bowman buyback auto or whatever, because he played the 1 year, then he went to the WWF as Draws. If I had like that thing out of like some Topps archives, and I knew you loved the Broncos, I knew this was a card. I'm like, you're a wrestling fan, you like Broncos autos, and I got this, and you had said I'd like to get it, but it's going to be too much. It just at this point in time, and I somehow finagled a way to get it and sent it to you. That reaction is priceless. But when you actually put the time in to the notes are always, you could just send notes, and now most people from the old school and that really get what this hobby's about, they get like the friendship stuff that we continuously try to preach. That's enough. But when you have like the painting, the artistic input, the vision, the time spent on it, the money spent to send it safely, it's that's immeasurable because you're taking time out of your day doing something. Yes, you love doing. He loves the artwork. I'm aware of that, but you're taking gobs of time. This isn't a 15-minute watercolor paint by numbers situation. This is fucking next level artistry, and to do that and do it for somebody specifically in mind, that's when you've really solidified, really forged a great lifelong friend. So yeah, that I wish he'd do more. I don't know what his schedule is. I'd like to get, as you were saying that, I'm like, that'd be cool, bro, dear, to get like sort of like the up close, the chest or the torso and up, like they're coming at him in an odd man rush or something, and then him holding the cup. I think it's a 95, 96, 94, 95, one of the two upper deck, where he's got the cup and he's skating by the boards after winning. It must have been 95-6. I think 6-7 was Colorado. But yeah, that something like that, where that the main piece. And I was thinking, I'm like, because I haven't seen any of that stuff forever. I mean, he hasn't been on YouTube. I don't know if he does anything in that YouTube Hall of Gamers Facebook page. I'm not on there. So
yeah, I don't.
I
I mean,
don't know.
he's taken a a backseat to cards as of late. I mean, he's got his different collecting focus these days. I'm not going to share it in case other people decide to watch this and try and inundate him with other stuff. I'm not going to do that to him. But I don't think he's drawing much these days either, because I know even after he did the drawings for the second year, I mean, it really tore up his hands and his wrist just because of his style of drawing. So it's one of those in which the talent is there. I mean, he could have done almost anything, but of course, as we get older, things start falling apart. He is, Ed. I'm never on Facebook, so I don't ever pay attention to stuff like that. But yeah, I know he was struggling to finish the ones that he wanted to do for the second year because of the wear and tear it did the year prior. And that's also why it went from color to black and white on some of them too. So I miss him in the community, but we touch base from time to time, not as frequently as we should, but we still touch base.
Yeah, him and Scott. I don't talk to them much. Again, and I get that way. If people don't know me, and Steve can attest to this too, there's times when I'll answer text messages right away, and there's times I won't. It's not because of anybody else but me. With my job and everything that goes on with it and life in general, I need at some point in some corner just decompression time. It's nothing to do with anybody, because I know people send me messages, either text or like the messenger. I need just to zone out. And I know with Steve, I should be a little more responsive, especially when it's about the show. But if I've got a long day and I hear at work there's one guy that just fucking will talk about nothing constantly, he'll corner pretty much anybody within ear's distance and start talking about literally nothing. And when I hear that for 5 out of the 8 hours of my shift, and he's telling the same story for the 8th time, I am absolutely done. I mean, that literally is like sitting at a slot machine and you've lost everything. You're just like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I don't want to hear anyone talk. I don't care what messages come in. Let me watch a Zelda game walkthrough. I've seen it 40 times. I know how to beat the game. I've beat the game. Let me watch Russian car crash videos. Let me just do nothing, because again, I have been sapped of all the energy and want to listen. So I mean, there's there's days, multiple days, where I'm just like, I need to fill back up, because it's just, as people say, SOS, same old shit. I it just, and I'm terrible at that. I'm just fucking terrible. But that's why, if people text me, if people message me, that is why I do not answer. It is not anything to do with anybody listening that's watching. It is just, and Ty said his wife's an introvert. And I have to be an extrovert for my fucking job, which I hate, but I'm an introvert. If I could sit in a cave and just do stuff on a computer, or not have to lift boxes all day, I would love that. And deal with people, fuck, that would be the best job in the world. But that's and that's why I won't say I lose touch with some people, because I try to stay, if I'm like, man, I haven't talked to Steve in a while, I don't have his number, old phone got jacked, so I don't fucking have it. Smitty, I don't hear from him, but I know he's busy because he builds houses. Alan, I hear from once in a while. But that's the thing. It's like I want to talk to people, but at the same time, I'm selfish in that regard, where I want to talk to them when I feel the need. But that's
I just ask that you don't disappear and don't respond for a few days. That's the difference. I understand needing the downtime. I can respect that. I've told you that.
oh yes,
And, I can tell when you're in a talkative mood and I can tell when you're not. I've picked up on those signals, you know, but that's also taken years of building that relationship to where we understand one another. And, because there's even been times when you've been in a talkative mood, I'm like, dude, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. It's like, I'm sorry. I'm old. I need my beauty sleep because, as you can tell, this ain't working. Uh, but I get it. Everybody goes through those moments to a certain degree. I can understand where you're coming from and feeling that way than others. Uh, hell, Vinny apologized to me today. He's like, "Man, I apologize for being so talkative today. IT was working on his computer because he was having issues." I'm like, "No, man, it's fine. I appreciate being able to have those conversations because it kind of breaks up the boringness of the day and the job and things along those lines. And that's what continues to build the friendships. The more you interact, the more you chat, the more you find out about each other and everything else and personalities and all sorts of fun stuff because that's what it's about, right? But the only thing I've ever told you is don't disappear for freaking 2 days because that's a problem because that's unlike you. And I know even around the holidays, I know that about you. And you even reiterated it this past December. I'm like, just don't do that though. Don't. Because then I'm going to start, okay, well, shit, I know he walks to work in bad weather. I know he's usually walking early. That's when all the drunk drivers are out. I don't need Dave to be getting hit by a freaking car or some shit and not knowing what's going on. That it's genuine concern. It's not that why the fuck are you avoiding me or why aren't you responding? Why are you ignoring it? That has nothing to do with it. It's genuine concern. It's like, okay, dude, you good? Something happened? Can I? What can I do to help? That's why I gave you so much crap last year.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's
just remember.
yeah, because I think Jason, I don't think he'll watch a zombie. I think like 3 times last week asked if I wanted to go live, and I mean, like Bob, there's times when it's like I loved going live. When was it? When we had ours, then I was on with him and Mark, and then he just disappeared with internet stuff, and then I was on JT's that Super Collector show that week. That's a tough week to be on that much. I like doing it, but at the end, you're just like, oh my god. And then I turn around like 2 days for our show again. I'm like, okay, that's 4 times in a week. Does anybody want to hear me for more than 4 minutes a week? Probably not. And then with
If they
Carlos,
did, if they didn't, they wouldn't be here every week. Just reminding you of that.
I know, but at the same time, it's just like, oh my god, my face is out there enough that. Then going on with Carlos, which I love going on there because if Amit's on there, Matt's on there, or Bobby Burrell's on there, somebody else is on there, it's like, okay, it's a you're starting to put like this circle together, and then there's like another circle. Now you're starting to overlap everything. That I like that, but I don't want it to be a constant. Like here's a circle, then you put the circle on top. I like to have some different opinions and voices to hear. Not that everybody here or that watches I don't want to hear, but in the hobby, you always like to have those ears open and feel that you're reaching like another. Here's another person that might not watch this at all. Fine, they watch Carlos. Well, then they get to see me and not. They don't know about me, which I don't really care if they do, but to bring my opinions and my hobby insight, and again, and again. The end again bingo card has hit like 10 times over, I think.
It can only appear on the bingo card once, Dave.
Well, somebody had the wild card on all their.
Oh, so they got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's next August or this August, like the end of August, September. I already have the 9 days. Trista and I and Lily will be Lake Superior, and then we're looking at like a pop-up camper. Just so we don't have to worry. Again, not that the tent wasn't good enough, because again, it was one that fits, sleeps comfortably, probably like 8. So it was like a partition tent, but at the same time, again, we don't want to worry about the weather or whatnot, because there's a couple days that it was fairly crummy weather. It didn't leak in there, but again, if you're sitting and you're pushing against at any degree on the sides, that water will somehow not seep through, but you will get wet. So we're looking at the pop up, and that's always something to look forward to. The national, I'm hoping happens, just because again, I wouldn't plan on buying a lot of stuff because the market is just stupid. I'd love to see people, and that's where I sort of vary. It's like if I see my people, I can deal with people. If I see people I don't want to deal with, work, and fucking stupid customers and dumbass questions, and management and upper management that is imbecilic. Yes, that's when I'm like, you know what? Time out, people. I'll do the Drake meme and it's like, get over there for that. Nobody wants to deal with you people.
Tell me how you really feel, Dave.
You don't want to know how I really feel.
I know. Yeah, we don't need to go to NC-17 rating for the podcast as we wrap up the show, right?
This channel is now blocked.
Oh, don't say that.
The traditional one and done.
I would hope not.
No, that would be bad.
I would hope not.
Yeah, I just want to get that out there because I know, because Alan's like that too, I think, and he's busy with his fishing and his family and whatnot. But I'll text him and then I'll get like, I don't know how his text messaging is set up, but it's not good because I'll get like the first part, then I'll get like the fourth part, the third part, and the second part. It comes in. So I'm like, what the hell are you trying to say? So I got to try to piece together the conversation. I'm like, oh.
Well, that's no different. They have to piece together the episode counts on the new channel. 1, 2, 3, 7, 6, 5, 8, 12. That'll be a project over a weekend. I'm not in any rush to do that. But it will happen.
I'm just going to go back and find all the Google searches for the pictures I did. That's going to be because I know some of those pictures, it wasn't like, oh, pet peeves or whatever example.
Can you not pull them off the original video? The ones that you have uploaded? Can you go look at the video creator and pull the thumbnail that way?
I might be able to. I'll check.
I was going to say, I'd try that and see.
Because again, it shouldn't be terribly difficult I just have to go back, look at the thumbnail, there. Okay, that's the one, and do the search on Google, which it doesn't take probably more than a couple minutes. But again, when you're not in the mood to do any of that stuff, that's the thing. It's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to look through Google for these images again, or do you want to go look through eBay at a Superpowers Fleer metal insert? Well, I'll do that. That's what?
I get it.
Double? Okay.
Nope, I get it.
That rabbit hole isn't so damn slippery and fucking icy. You would be all still at the top of the hole, not ready to go in. It's like, we're good.
Valid point. Valid point. So with that, coming up on 3.5. So we did surpass the 3 hours, which we had a feeling we might, but still not shabby.
Yeah, we'll have. Again, I've got one thing that I wrote down. I couldn't remember the other. I think I remembered it this morning or yesterday morning walking to work. And I forgot because I didn't have a pen and paper when it's that early. But we'll have a couple other things. And I think they're going to be even more time constrained. And they might be like pre-recorded things. But at the same time, Steve and I haven't even talked about any of this stuff yet. So I don't want to sit there and, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. And let the apples and oranges and the cat out of the bag. So we don't want to do that. We everything close to the vest.
At least early on.
So those internet monies can start pouring in.
Or lack thereof.
Or so it's not going to be huge changes. It might, and it won't be every week. That'll be the thing. It'll be whenever we get a wild hair up our butt to be like, okay, we want to talk about something particular. So, and just more stuff out there more content. No, it's going to be some more videos, and it's probably going to be, it'll be fun. So.
Good deal. All right.
So with that, we don't want to go as long as Carlos. That 6 hours. Fuck, I saw that the other day, and I'm like, because I ducked out. I don't even know what time it was.
I ducked out, I think, after 2.
It might have been 3-ish, 3.5, somewhere in there. And even by then, it was just sort of zoning out because, again, Monday comes quickly.
Yeah, I was just tired, man.
And then when I look at the end video, I'm like 6:09. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was like, great topics. I mean, great show.
Yeah.
But it was like, I started getting the eye started getting heavy, and it's like, okay, man, I got to turn this off.
Yeah, there's got to be something in there, some sort of Centrum Silver or whatever. I mean, it just because I know when we start hitting like that 4-hour mark, no matter if I've got a nap or not, it's like somebody's turning that dial down. And it's not because of anything other than the day has just gotten long.
Oh, we could do it.
Oh,
you and I could accomplish it. It's one of those in which I don't want us to feel it the next day. I mean, you having to be up early, a lot earlier than I do, it's still rough for me. And as the week progresses, it's harder. So that's what it is, Carlos. Interesting. So we've now learned Carlos is a robot.
That doesn't surprise me.
He is not a human. He is a robot.
So with that in mind, you got any final comments, criticisms, conversational, anything?
Nope. We actually covered the topic this time in great detail. So props to us for the first episode fully recorded on the new channel. Pretty proud of us. to start in the right direction.
Well, I figured that would be a topic that could, even when I watched your video and I'm putting submit, and I don't have any 2021 goals. I'm like, well, that's going to be an interesting time.
Yes, but I still came partially prepared. Like I said, I don't write them down. I always have something in the back of my mind, but it's always something in which gives me the opportunity to shift in the event that I need to shift.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're not going to be doing deep dives into some of these, I don't know, more topical type topics, like the grading, the companies. Like Carlos got in there with like Bobby and Joe on Sunday. Some of like the vintage stuff, we know of it. We don't have immense depth of knowledge on it. We know what we like, and that's about the extent of it. And we know the key cards, the super key cards. I mean, other than that, we're going to stick to what we love and try not to lead everybody astray.
Paul's comment. I feel like hitting the topic as a zig after so much zagging. Keeps you coming back for more, though, Paul. Because you just never know. That's what makes it enjoyable. Well, that's what we hope makes it enjoyable.
Yeah, we like to hit the topic, like you said, once or twice during an episode to at least make sure that it's somewhat about the. Because I don't want to go back and change titles. I mean, you gotta somehow stick a little bit once in a while, partially.
Maybe, perhaps.
On topic.
Absolutely.
Until next week, we'll probably be on closer to the start time. I got up from a nap late, and I was struggling to get out of bed because I wanted to just keep sleeping. So, but then I had to prepare some food, which you probably saw me eat, which is nice. I got to eat during the show because otherwise, I don't want to be eating at 11 at night.
Well, that's what I'm going to be doing because mine's in the microwave.
So we'll try to get a little earlier next week on our regularly scheduled program. The Hawks game ran long, so our 7:05 TBS starting time did not go to plan, but that's all right.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's been a couple times we've been spot on, but it's rare. If you're a betting person, bet the over.
Always bet the over.
Yeah, otherwise you're losing money. So, thank everybody for joining in, watching, interacting. Thank you for Matt jumping aboard. First episode on the new channel. Again, we've always said it. You guys want to be on, talk about some inserts, talk about life, talk about whatever. More than happy. We want to try to cap it at 4 total, just because it's a little more manageable that way. As much as it'd be nice to get 6 on here, it's tough to maintain even some sort of discourse, and it's like, hey, let's shuffle around a little bit. But again, we'll figure the 4 is going to be the way to go. That'll be the one thing we've talked about, I think. And that's it. But I know after the show we'll talk a little more, and then next week we'll possibly lay some things out there. Who knows? Because we want to get you guys involved a little more too. So, and ladies. So, with that, episode 21 nearly in the books. And Steve.
22.
22. No.
22.
Yeah. Right. We wanted to get 21 on, but that's all right. 22 is in the books. He's Steve. I am Dave. This is the Insert Revolution podcast. Remember, collecting cards is absolutely amazing. building those friendships in the hobby while collecting cards. That's what it really should be about. Good night, everyone.